Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I already have a long introduction here, but this is something I meant to say yesterday, I forgot, and I want to put it at the beginning of the video. You know, if you watch my channel, I don't ask people to subscribe, and I don't keep on hitting people up for donations and talk about my channel, promoting and all that shit. Because I don't like to do that. Like, it's not, it interferes. I might, once in a while, like, I feel like I have to do it, and I do it for about a month or so. Because my channel's dying a slow death. I talked about this before. You know, there's a period I was down to 2,000 views and making no money 2 years ago, and then I made a slight comeback, but I'm making less money now than I've been under I had like a bare minimum. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I already have a long introduction here, but this is something I meant to say yesterday, I forgot, and I want to put it at the beginning of the video. You know, if you watch my channel, I don't ask people to subscribe, and I don't keep on hitting people up for donations and talk about my channel, promoting and all that shit. Because I don't like to do that. Like, it's not, it interferes. I might, once in a while, like, I feel like I have to do it, and I do it for about a month or so. Because my channel's dying a slow death. I talked about this before. You know, there's a period I was down to 2,000 views and making no money 2 years ago, and then I made a slight comeback, but I'm making less money now than I've been under I had like a bare minimum. If I'm only going to make this much money, I was going to pack in the channel because, I shouldn't get paid what I'm getting paid. It's just, this is a job and it's way below like my bare minimum. Like, you have maybe a bare minimum of what you can accept and what you can call basically a living wage. Like, I'm not making a living wage here. I'm probably making under minimum wage with the amount of time and energy I put into this channel. And, I feel like the quality of the work and the channel, and I'm not a business person and I don't know how to do anything to, I've strategized the best I can. My main thing was to bring in new people. I had this idea of renting some billboard space to drive traffic to my channel. That was sort of a last-ditch effort. Somebody contacted me and basically told me the prices for me to do that. I couldn't afford it, and I don't know how effective that would be. YouTube is screwing me over as a partner and has been for a while. When my channel was thriving, I've start talking later in the video about when when my Michelle Obama video popped. I got 2 million views. I had all these videos that were over 500,000. I had probably 10 or 15 over 500,000. A couple of them over 1 million. Then I had a number of videos, probably like 50 or 100 that were over 100,000, 200,000, things like that. And, even more than that, and I regularly would get 50,000, 60,000 views, back when YouTube used to promote all these things. But, they would squeeze me on the ads and give, they rate your channel. They give you a channel description, and, they put you on a tier, and you're an undesirable channel, not just because you're a truther or whatever their reasoning. And they run shitty ads that don't pay any money, or they bury you. And the one thing YouTube has refused to do or stop doing is to promote my channel, to recommend it in the sidebar. That's how you get, with all the people viewing YouTube videos, and if your channel doesn't pop for new people, then you're basically kills your channel. You always have to be bringing in new people. And I've been aware of this for a while. My view count has gone up and down, and I'm not going to pander to dumb fucks or tell people what they want to hear. Like, I'm beyond all that kind of shit. I'm not going to make videos for dumb fucks. Like, I've done this job long enough where, just they're just soul killing. They're just enthusiasm killing, right? They just suck the life out of you if you end up having to do those things. I'm not going to talk about the channel constantly. But, after the Trump election and some things happened where my channel started to trend upwards, I started getting more viewers again. YouTube seemed to be loosening up the community guidelines things. It didn't seem to. They loosened up the community guideline things. And, there was all that. My channel was growing. I was still making far less than I used to make. It's been going downhill since 2018, 19. They started to censor and, kill channels like mine. But, it seemed like it was, self-correcting just when it seemed like it was going into the fucking abyss. But then, you know, more recently, my videos have gone up and down. I get up to 4,000 or 5,000 views on some of them. But there were a number of people who said that my videos were there was just too many ads on the videos. And I was like, well, I can't do anything about that. There's a way to do it manually, but I just wasn't up for it. But then I looked at the number of ads, and, they're running 20 ads on a 2-hour video. I mean, ads every 5 minutes. And they're shitty ads because I'm making no money. Like, the ads themselves are not good quality ads. Many of them are probably very long ads that people aren't going to watch all the way through. So I'm not going to make any money on them, and they're, just disrupting the flow of my videos. So I started to do that. I do it pretty much, 6 out of 7 videos unless I forget or something. Maybe you guys have been seeing that there's less ads. And now I run 3 or 4 mid-roll ads on a 2-hour video, and I can put them in between clips so it's not disrupting the flow. Long voiceovers, I usually don't put an ad in there. And so, I think it's better for the viewer, better for, the content itself. But I just checked it the other day and my money was cut in half. And now my view count is down again. And, it's just a never-ending cycle of toiling. I mean, it's the part of the thing I don't like to think about. I just like to think about making content. But, I could go to a membership-only type situation, but that would, not bring in new viewers. I mean, I believe that, the two things, I don't want to call them things, the two pillars of what I do here is specifically talk about the internal connection to God, which is something I fully believe in, and the Sajmark system as a system to help people do that. I believe in spirituality, and I believe in the Sajmark system to help people facilitate this connection between the divinity within them. These are two things that I think people desperately need to hear, whether they want to or not. And it's kind of my job or whatever it is. Like, I'm doing God's work by doing that. I fully believe in that. And if I make this channel private, then all the new people who can't, new people can't find my channel. I mean, they're not finding it that much now, but still, I have to leave it open for that reason. And so, I'm kind of in a bad situation. YouTube is fucking me, and, and that's not going to change. And, just the kind of content that I make, and there's more dumb fucks than there are people who this kind of content will appeal to. It's a fringe potential audience that I have here. And again, I'm not looking for your dumbass feedback on this, because usually people just leave stupid ideas and it's depressing and whatever. People who don't know how to run a channel, and they think they don't know anything about it, and they come up with stuff trying to be helpful maybe, but it's not helpful. Like, I'm just letting you guys know what's going on. Since I've been minimizing the mid-roll ads, my money has gone down and my video view count is going down. And when I looked at it, it's just, it's toiling, right? It's just, it's hard to get motivated when you're on a sinking ship. It's just, even if you're doing good work, or you feel like you're doing good work, and people will say, you changed my life, and, how much they need my channel. But I could die tomorrow, and, my wife, of course, that would be a big hard for her, and, my dogs, and, some of you guys, but most people die, and it's not such a big deal. Like, people, will be sad for a year or so. People dying all the time, and, even Master Chargy, who, when he died, the whole meditation system collapsed. It's real fucking damage that was done, a real loss for so many of us. But we're all still going. All the people who do the meditation, just anybody dies, any great saint, any great person, any important person, there are people who just light up the room and they're a joy to the world. And your life isn't as good when those people die. Like, you're definitely missing something. And, it negatively affects you, but the world keeps on spinning, and get the fuck out of here, you flat earthers. I had issues with flat earthers, which people know. If you were treated the way so many of us were treated by flat earthers and their bullshit stuff, just totally unlikable as a group, just the whole thing. And, they would just, anytime I commented, which had nothing to do with them, I would say something that would indicate I don't believe in flat earth. And they would always get butthurt and have to leave comments. You guys probably experienced some of it. And, some of it was bad, like just whatever. And so I have a total dislike for them as a group. Some of them are just, they know how to keep their mouths shut, and it isn't, they're not, they don't have this personality affliction. You see it with vegans and other groups, and, QBs, of course, Trumpers, and then the real obnoxious liberals. I mean, all of them. People who can't help themselves, they have to say something when somebody disagrees with them, even though it isn't going to change anything. And they have to tell you how bad they suck, or they have to tell you how bad they think you suck, but they're really telling you how bad they suck. And, I have a no flat earth policy here. And, there was a woman who went by the name of Grandma Knows, and she had started the meditation, and like she had left us shitty comments like a couple times. She was a regular viewer, regular commenter. I have a no complaint department, and she defended flat earthers, which I mean, if you're here, you're either with me or not. Like you're not. There's no disloyalty to. I mean, you can have your own opinions, of course you can. Like I don't care about that. I don't want to hear you defending fucking flat earthers or somebody else like I'm being too hard on them because you have no idea. Anybody that I shit on here, criticize, deserves way more than me criticizing them. Like they just suck really bad as people, whether it be Trump or whatever. And, especially if people have been hostile, they're a hostile group. And, like the Cubies were a hostile group, and they've kind of been denuded, as have the Flat Earthers. And so I banned her, right? And, I didn't confront her or say anything, but she was just, that's it. Like, I'm not, you're with them. Go hang out with Flat Earthers, you piece of shit, right? And this woman wrote a long email to me, about a fucking poor ass life and how she was abused and how she's all fucked up, but still with a lot of anger towards me. I didn't really read the whole letter, but it started off with that she had done what was then Heartfulness, before I knew Heartfulness was a cult, for me. Like like she was doing me a fucking favor. And, if this channel, like this isn't some beggar, like I'm not doing a beggar channel and, like I'm begging you to watch my videos. Like, the content sucks, but, like there's people put out content or post a picture on social media and all their loved ones have to, shower them with praise because they're obviously looking for compliments. I'm not looking for compliments or false praise. Either my content has value or it doesn't. If it doesn't have value, there's no reason for me to make it, right? I'm not contributing anything, I'm not changing anything. I'm not having a positive effect here. And then, either it does or it doesn't. And, there'll be plenty of people say, yes, it does. And, have to take their word for it because I can't, in terms of their personal experience, because, sometimes people lie, like give you false compliments. But, I believe that there's been people who have been positively affected by my content here. But, it's struggling. And, I'm just letting people know that's the case. I mean, there's a membership program and people can leave personal donations and, find some ways to promote the channel to other people, get people to watch it. Like those are things you can do. It's up to you to do them. If you want to save the channel, then, that's what you'll do. If you don't, then, it'll see what happens. It'll probably just eventually dwindle down to pretty much nothing. And, I'll end up doing something else. Okay, so here's my original introduction. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Tuesday, June 16th. I wanted to talk about something that plagues humanity and nobody really understands it or thinks about it. When people reach high levels of spirituality, it's usually after they've lived, a good 40 to 50 years of their life. You don't really dive into being a spiritual person until you've sort of lived your life, right? You've lived your material life and you've established yourself, and a lot of your energy goes into your material pursuits, right? I've talked about how people used to live hundreds to thousands of years, so that would, make it so they could live the majority of their life spiritual. They could have their kids, have some sort of material career. And then after a long period of time, you would get disinterested in the material world. Like you would just, you would be in a state of sort of wisdom. Like I, said this about myself, like, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or whatever it was, some period of time ago, I finally figured out like I just sort of cracked the code of my personal existence, right? Like I just got it, like, what I'm supposed to, my attitudes and just, people saying get your mind right. The other thing is you have things inside of you. I've talked about some scars before, these some scaric packages. Some of the things are, negative things you have to deal with, like addictions, and some of these things are good things that you've developed in past lives. Like you think of them being as like a computer program, some part of your internal world that's yet to express itself, right? Like it's latent, it's going to come around like when you become a parent, all this stuff kicks in. All this previous knowledge of being a parent and just, biological things, of course, when you're a mom, like the biological action of being pregnant, and it releases a sort of, an inner mother that's there, right? You have this potential. Now, maybe as a kid, you played with dolls and, you did things to, pretend to be a mom, these things, whatever it was. But, until you like have that actual experience, there's no reason for the full program to come out and manifest itself, right? People get jobs and, they rise up to high levels of power. And then they might be a slacker or a chucklehead, somebody who's unfocused, and then all of a sudden they're like a tyrant, and their employees hate them, and they're, all those types of things. But when you live your life and you're living in a way where you're, changing and evolving as a person, you will find things emerging from yourself that you didn't know you had. Talents and abilities and knowledge and but it's only there when the need for it comes about. That's why, having difficulties and challenges is a real blessing, because it pulls out things that you have stored away, latent abilities that get activated. And you reach a certain age and like you've had this potential that you didn't know was there, and then as you get older, it's supposed to be where you're like really understanding life, what life's about, and what your purpose is. And the problem with our shortened lives, we have a abnormally shortened lives. Like, I was doing I was watching this show Alone, one of these like survival shows. And this guy caught a fish that can live up to like 300 years. Like there's a blurb, and it said the fish lived up to 300 years. And then I found a shark that was in Greenland that lived, I think, 500 years, 1,000 years. Of course, tortoises and parrots. There's animals that outlive people. And how is that possible? Why would we not have longevity? There's animals that live, I mean, certainly we know with trees, and there's life here that's like ancient lives. It's, prehistoric, I mean, trees that are thousands of years old, and, life forms. And so, why would people live such short lives compared to even some, animals that are they're lesser developed, right? And I've talked about this quite often, that when you only live to 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old, 70 years old, you have the major parts of your life as an adult, right? So you're in your 20s, and then, if you have kids then, in some cultures you're prepared. Some people in America are prepared by their families to have kids when they're in their 20s, which is, positive because you have the energy. But oftentimes you're not ready, like, to have kids. And it happens too early. And also you're not financially established. So you have kids in your 20s and you're guaranteeing that you're going to have a life of poverty because you haven't created a financial situation where you're, and either way you're going to have your primary earning years. And now both men and women are expected to work. Almost have to work. The mother and the father. So you're going to have your kids at the same time you're going to have your biggest part of your career. And so you have those two big things in your life, raising kids. I mean, it's 18 years per kid, even longer, in many cases nowadays. And so if you have two kids, it's like 25 years of, whatever it might be, 3 kids, whatever it might, the amount of time you have kids, you're raising those kids over a long period of time, and then you have your career that lasts 30 to 40 years, and that's, think about how much time that takes up, just those two things. And then there's your marital relationship, your romantic relationship, your love relationship with your spouse. And so those are 3 major things that, one of them is getting neglected, and, your physical health and exercising and, whatever, your recreational life is absorbed. I mean, pretty much everything revolves around your kids, especially in the early years. And then all the things that, go with your job and all these things that just take away your time, take away all your energy. And so there's no time for a spiritual life when you get into your connection to God. Only to when that's all over, like when all that stuff happens, when all that stuff is sort of completed, you then maybe you have time to focus on your spiritual life. Those people have some sort of craving for that. And that doesn't happen till you're like 50, whatever, 60. And then, you can settle down. Like everything's rushed around. You're sped up. Being sped up is a bad thing, especially now that time seems to be moving faster. And so then you've reached some spiritual goal. And maybe you find a system, a spiritual system, or you develop one yourself. You become like a saint-like person, a spiritual master of some sort. And then you're like, all right, well, what do I do now? I'm dying. You're aware of you got 20 years left. You've reached a spiritual level. And so you need to find a successor. And this is what I wanted to talk about. That people don't understand the problems. I mean, certainly our shortened lifestyle is a part of that. But you need somebody to carry on your work. Like you have to, pass it on to somebody else, right? You have to have a disciple. You have to leave the thing, a living essence of your spiritual accomplishments, like Jesus the Christ. He had to leave the Christ with somebody else. Like somebody else becomes the Christ, right? They become the master. And this is something that's plagued spiritual organizations that become religions. Of course, we know with St. Peter, and then became like the first pope, and then they had the popes, and now it's all corrupt and political. It's not, the spiritual essence has been lost. And so, once that happens, you no longer have a viable, you have a religion, which is materialistic and power-oriented. And the essence of Jesus's, mission, again, he lived a very short life and, was not, he wasn't in his mature years yet. But it's a thing that has to happen, like this succession. And so there was a time where I was in India and Master Charji was, really sick. He had two kinds of cancer. I think he had bone and prostate cancer, debilitating leg pain, had trouble breathing. His body's just falling apart. And he was, he had a young guy that was supposed to be his successor. And that guy, I had an interaction with him where he was chastising. I came out, I didn't go to group meditation, which is at 7:30. And then after group meditation, they opened up this little canteen sort of snack bar type place. They served mostly Indian food, but they had sandwiches and things. And my kids and I would go there for breakfast if we didn't have anything in the house or whatever it was. And I was waiting to eat. Like I went down there and the meditation was going on. There's meditation every morning, like, at 7:30 in the morning. And I was waiting for it to be over. And I was the first person there, just sitting there by myself. And there's a guy, he was, I think he must have been like a Brahmin, and he was always in like a tie and like a dress shirt. Well-kept person, like someone who had money. And this guy who had been Charji's successor comes out and starts berating him. Like first of all, he just pushes in front of me. Like I'm just whatever. I'm like, And he starts berating this nice guy. This guy who's like, I didn't know this guy's name, but I, interacted with him. He's just a pleasant person. He's doing a volunteer job. He's retired. He's just in there running the snack bar. And this guy who was, Charji's successor, apparently he was just harassed by the Brahmins because he was from northern India and he wasn't Brahmin. And he got maybe some death threats. I don't know all the story behind it. But he withdrew as successor, and Charji had basically 3 more years to live. And, when Daji became his successor, he talked about how, he wanted people, or there was some kind of announcement that people, you had like an ID card, and they would scan it so they could get a count of how many people are doing the meditation. And in the Chennai area, Chennai is a city, it used to be called Madras when it was the English were naming shit, right? Like the English just started renaming the places in India. and India eventually changed the names back to Indian names, right? But Madras was, became Chennai. And Chennai is a city of about 26 million people or so. And there was about 20,000 people who did the meditation in that city. And the ashram meditation hall held 5,000 people. And they had some balconies, but it was like, hot as shit. Like it was, if you were in the shade, it was okay. But they had these balconies like on the side where you could, it was just a flat roof, so you could sit there, but only like in the shade. It was just hot as shit. And so, maybe with everything there, people packed in, maybe 5,000-6,000 people could meditate. And so, there was the meditation was the big one. It was called satsang, which was group meditation. I think satsang means to be with God. I forget what the exact definition is. And also to be together or something, like it has multiple meanings. And there would be between 3,000 and 5,000 people there. And when Master Charji was giving the sitting, there would be more. But then he was too sick to give it, and Daji was starting to give the sitting. And there's only around 3,000 people there. And Daji got up and gave a talk about how Charji was, kind of bummed that there were so few people, right? That there was, like he would look at the numbers and it just, whatever. He was only like a year left before he died. He, like anybody else, like there's just a practical aspect of it. You might remember he came to America one time and there was only like 500 people there at the gathering in the ashram. And he was like, where is everybody? There was supposed to be some thousands of people doing the meditation in America. There's only 500. He came all the way from India and there was just nobody there, right? So, and somebody wrote a comment yesterday that I think they deleted. The person wrote something like, sorry, I disappointed you or whatever. So I guess I must have said something about, I know I talked about in some recent videos about how, they're just, people just won't do spirituality. Like it's just there for everyone to do. Like it's just natural for people to do that. It's something everybody should gravitate to and they just don't do it, right? And, I had some advantages in terms of just, not really being into material life, whatever it is, like just the same way the American life, like other people were. I always felt like something was missing, which was my, what I now do in terms of the meditation. But it took some convincing. Like I didn't just come to it. Like it took years of, being bummed out and I guess craving something that I didn't know what it was. And if somebody had said you need to meditate, it was like, well, fuck you, that's not it. I wouldn't have believed it. So, I understand why people don't, gravitate to it. But there's just, especially now with the way everything's going, that collapse. But nobody disappoints me. Like, if anything, people disappoint themselves, right? Because that has nothing to do with me. Like, it's your choice. Like, it's your relationship to God. But, I was thinking about this thing with Charji. And, whatever the outcome, the numbers of people, the lack of people coming and doing the meditation, the numbers dwindling. The real disappointment for him was not having a successor. So this young guy, who was younger guy, probably in his 30s or 40s, he quits. And Charji has 3 years left. And he nominates Kamish Patel. Now, Kamish later came out and said that Charji wrote his name down, but decided against it, which should be very telling to these fucking dumb fucks that are, following this piece of shit. But the more important problem is, I thought about it. Like, I know all the people who did the meditation. And, when Lalaji, the first master, started, he didn't even have an organization. People just came to his house, and he transmitted this energy to them. And there's about 200 people maybe 50 would come. Like, it's like you have the overall number. Like if you have a what's called a center, let's say you live in a city, like, there's any number of these cities, and there may be 100 people who potentially will do the meditation. Like they're irregular people that'll show up to some group meditations. They're not there every week. And, you probably have like 12. It's usually like 12 or 15 or 10 or something. There's different centers. Like there's centers that have regular, maybe you get up to 20 people a week. very seldom you see anybody with 100. A lot of these guys who came over from India and got good jobs, and they became rich, and they would buy these McMansions on a cul-de-sac. I've been to a bunch of these guys' houses, and they would build a basement that would be like a place where you could get 200 people to meditate. And they might have a gathering or something at their house, and they would fill it up. But it'd usually be like this big room with like 6 or 7 people, 15 people, at the most. And then once in a while, when Chargy would come into the country, there'd be a lot more. There'd be like 60 people all of a sudden. All these people who are part-time practitioners would come in. But, it wasn't like it was in India, where some of these places would be packed. Somebody's house would be packed to capacity. There'd be people out in the lawn meditating, sitting on the grass outside the house because there wasn't enough room in the house, like this kind of thing. But, in America, it was like, slim pickings. But anyways, Lalji had, some 200 people, maybe tops. I don't know how many people regular that come to meditate with him. And there was no organization, there was no land, there was no donations taken, there was nothing. Then Babaji took over. And, Lalji had created highly developed spiritual yogis who had these spiritual cities, these spiritual powers. And they tried to will Babaji to death and take this. They wanted to be Lalji's representative, his disciple, his successor. 13 years after he died. And they tried to kill Babaji in a variety of like spiritual warfare type of ways. And there's a whole stuff in Babaji's diary about it. Lalji telling him he had to punish people. I think he erased one guy's soul. Like they just, there's it's a little unclear. But there was a way that you could a spiritual person could, evaporate a soul. Like it would just, cease to exist. An eternal soul that's there from the beginning of time, the end of time. There's some people who, their souls were pinned up at Antarctica after they died for 10,000 years. Their soul would just be there stuck in Antarctica meditating on itself to redeem itself and purify itself from its corrupt ways, like this shit like that. So there was this whole thing that happened. And there were some attempts on his life, and there was nothing. There was 200 fucking people, no properties, no anything like that. And then when Babaji passed away, he had one ashram near his house. He had, 5 shitty kids. 2 of them were particularly bad, as to my understanding. And there was, 10,000, 5,000 to 10,000 people, mostly managed by Chargy. Babaji wasn't really a businessman. Chargy had more, clerical skills. He was a secretary of the mission. He had the whole organization. And they tried to kill him. They poisoned him. He went to somebody's house, and he knew the food was poisoned because the people were acting fucking fishy, but he ate it anyway just to prove to them they couldn't kill him. But, he had blisters of poison for months coming out of his skin, like he was fucked up, like afterwards. And some guy showed up with a gun, tried to kill him, and then they just did a lot of shit, lawsuits, and trying to challenge the legality of the mission. They wouldn't allow him to come to the ashram. Babaji's kids were trying to steal it. And it was fucking bad. When, I came in the tail end of it. So Babaji died in 1983. And I came to do the meditation in 1993. And my first trip to India was in 1995. And 12 years afterwards, Chargy was still dealing with the legality of challenges to his mastery, his being the successor and Babaji's chief disciple. And then it was like, well, who's going to be his successor? Because there's supposed to be a living master, and the essence, because of this transmission that's given, where Babaji they were traveling to Denmark, where Babaji, there's a bunch of really good practitioners in Denmark, small country, and they had, like I said, they had an ashram there, and they had lots of people that did the meditation that were, just really good at it. I know some of them. And, I've met some of them. And, they were traveling throughout Europe, and they came to America. And they were in an airport, and Babaji transmitted his own condition, his own, like, spiritual essence into Chargy in 1974. So he was, and then he was developing and training him how to deal with all that, energy and power, and, what to do with, how to do all the spiritual stuff. And Chargy had gone into like a coma for like, a couple of months in 2011. And he came out and nominated this clown Dodgy. But he only had 3 years to prepare him. Dodgy had spent a lot of time with him, though, before that. He was in he lived in America, but he was, he had 7 pharmacies in America, but his kids were running them. And he came to India and stayed there for like 7 years or so. And so, he had been in and out, spent a lot of time there with Chargy, so he had a lot of spiritual work done. But the issue wasn't so much that as there was all these properties. There's, I think, close to $1 billion worth of assets, certainly millions of dollars of land, these ashrams. And then there's the people. There's, an audience, practitioners, a couple 100,000 in India. And there was a lot of these business guys that were around Chargy, that Chargy talked about how they had the worst character qualities. He had almost to like manage them. I've talked about that in the past. He gave this talk where he said these guys are the fucking worst. People have seen the clip and sent it to me. And there was a guy who was a part of that group, and we were having a phone conversation about it. And he said, he was there when Chargy gave this interview and talked about these people, him and all the rest of them. And he felt like shit. Like he was like, this guy is a really good guy. Like he's somebody who's, really devoted and somebody that I would think is above the fray. But he felt bad. And he came down to breakfast the next day, and all these, rich business guys who Chargy just talked about them in the worst terms, are patting each other on the back and laughing and joking around like nothing happened, right? And they all had their own ambitions. They were, they were these, what they were called the Asuric kings, demonic kings in some past life or something. They had spiritual lives, but also corrupt lives or whatever. And they were rich business guys, successful in the material world who, maybe didn't fully understand or appreciate the meditation, when they were going to be a problem. And I realized, when I saw Dodgy just fail and be a piece of shit, that there was no one that could have stepped in. Chargy was micromanaging the mission, and he had an unbelievable capacity for work and these things. And that whoever came in was going to be challenged, and, there's going to be people who want to corrupt the mission. There's going to be haters. There's going to be people that wouldn't accept him. They were going to negatively compare him to Chargy. And there's going to be all these people who want to come in and steal take the power and the money and now this big volunteer organization. And there wasn't going to be anybody who could stand up to that. Like I know all the people. Like I know, there might be some people who are great spiritual saints that are in the background, but they don't have the capacity to fight off these, demonic businessmen and all these motherfuckers, right? And it was, as much as Chargy was bummed about the lack of numbers in the ashram, it was that he didn't have a fucking quality disciple, and there almost never is, right? There's almost never anybody who can come in and take over where you left off and keep the thing going, internally. Like they will rise up to that level of spiritual attainment. And maybe there's a second guy, and in Saj Marg there was a third guy, right? Which is very rare. But by the time you get to the fourth guy or the fifth guy, it's just too late. This is one of the reasons why women are spared the burden of becoming the master, because you have to do destructive work, and women, their hearts are quite more sensitive because of the being a mom. Like you can rise up to the highest levels of spirituality as a woman, but you have to deal with all this fucking power bullshit, and women who end up being gifted at dealing with that, like women who become CEOs and military or whatever, they get worse than men. They get even more aggressive and bloodthirsty than men, because they become a Kali, Kali, the goddess of destruction. But I realized that Chargy really didn't have a potential successor. There wasn't one around, and no matter what he did, even though there were so many more people to choose from, and there's the mission had grown. Given the corruption and just the bureaucracy of India, and then, people worldwide, there wasn't anybody who was non-Indian that the Indians would accept. There's all kinds of problems with castes, and, and there was other problem was the majority of the people in the mission that were important were Brahmin, and they lived near Chargy. in southern India, and they were all prejudiced against anybody who wasn't a Brahmin. I mean, all these fucking bullshit, caste things and prejudicial things and cultural things and whatever. And then just the, people being swayed by the money and power and just whatever it might be. And so there wasn't anybody that could step in. Like there just wasn't anybody who was capable. There might be some great, sweet, spiritual people who are, um, I mean, Babaji, like I said, there could be like someone who was, a Babaji type person, somebody who's like non-assuming. But Babaji couldn't run the mission. He had to have Charji run it. Like he didn't have the, he was almost like a dyslexic person, or someone who didn't have the business acumen. He didn't understand foreign cultures the same way. Like he could do the spiritual work like, no other person, but, before him or after him, he was like an anomaly in terms of the human condition and doing spiritual work, but he wasn't someone who could run the organization. Charji came in and started to keep, receipts and like keep, like ledgers and things. He had those capabilities, right? And oftentimes spiritual people don't have the ability to be an organizational leader. Charji just had a knack of picking the right people to do the jobs and connecting people. And I mean, he would just come in and everything would get better. He'd come to America and there'd be so many more people and there'd be a, energy and vibe and people would be getting along and there'd be all this stuff, and then he'd leave and it would all fall apart. He just had a way of, he was like the ultimate sort of spiritual CEO type person. He was capable of the spiritual work, but also he could do the material work, and he could micromanage everything so that people wouldn't do stupid shit, which they always did when he turned, power over to them, and he allowed people to make their mistakes, and, they would make them, right? So it was just, this is the problem with human existence. And so, this guy Dodgy came in, and he's just a piece of shit kind of bomb, like, low IQ and not, I mean, he was smarter before. I don't know what happened to him. But he's like, he got stupider, and he had all the spiritual power, but he had been a successful businessman himself. But, his shortcomings, his egotistical things, his pride, whatever, his ambition, his culture. He comes from a very seedy place where like Charji went to Daji's area, Gujarati, where he's from. And they're it's a place in the western part of, it was very influenced by the British, Bombay business area, a lot of business. And he chastised these guys for being too obsessed with money. Daji was sitting right next to him. He was telling these guys, Gujarati, you guys are, you have to devote more to your attention to your spiritual life. And Daji was that type of a scammer, a fucking, they have low, ethics and moral character, this type of people that live there. And those tendencies really emerged with Daji as he became the, master of the system. And instead of embracing his spiritual wealth and the gifts that he had been given, he collapsed like a fucking, folded like a card house, and just, went on his lower, embraced his lower nature. One of the people who's been doing the meditation that heard about through me said that she had extra books that she could send me. I have accumulated some of the mission literature. I was talking about preserving it. Years ago, there was these Whispers of the Brighter World books. And my ex and I were thinking about, like, what are we going to do with these books? They're, like, sacred. They were expensive. The original ones were, like, $200, leather bound. I mean, just really beautiful books. And they have this, these incredible whispers messages. They're the most channeled, content ever on planet Earth. Like 200 of these messages, channeled messages. This French woman just sitting there in her little apartment, an invalid, somebody who's crippled, just a bit disabled physically, and she would just crank out these messages, for, I don't know, like 20 years, and, there's like 20,000 of them. And, there's some of them are in books, and some of them are put out this thing called a Whisper a Day. And then there's these other books that are amazing that, for those of us who have read the books and have had the books, like the transmission of the essence of the book already in our internal system, and the ideas and the teachings of the system are very unique and, just profound, and we've benefited from the literature. And so I wanted to preserve all this because Dodgy's scrubbing all the Chargy books. He's trying to get rid of Chargy, erase him from the mission. But I don't even know with the collapsing world situation and the rest of it. I wanted to preserve some of this stuff, and of course I'm doing this gratefulness meditation, and I'm like, well, my ex and I were going to give each one of the whispers. There ended up being 5 of them, but we were going to give each one to a kid, and they would be in charge of it, like to take care of it, and whatever. I mean, that was a thought way back when, before my family fell apart. Of course, my kids turned out not to. They're none of them are going to do the meditation, at least as far as I can tell. And I don't have a relationship with them, and that's all, water under the bridge. But you want to pass on the good things that you have to offer to people, and I mean, in terms of the ideas and things, I put whatever knowledge I have and things that are helpful. I put in these videos and talk about it, and that's one way, through, I mean, this kind of thing. It's, of course, Sage-Mark system. It's transmitting your essence, the essence of all that you have, in terms of the masters of the system, but, in terms of even the other people, and passing that down, the spiritual wealth that you accumulate from years of meditation and, connection to divinity and all these things. And so when I started doing the gratefulness meditation, that became part of it. But there isn't enough people and enough interest for people to do gatherings and face-to-face meetings. I mean, I don't have relationships like this person writing. I'm sorry I disappointed you. I don't know any of you. I've met a handful of people, but I mean, no one's going to disappoint me because I don't expect very much from human beings. We have a higher nature. We just don't embrace it. And I mean, we disappoint ourselves. That's all it is. When we go low, when we embrace our lower nature and don't embrace our higher nature, that's a disappointment to ourselves, right? But in terms of human beings, I mean, I know it isn't just from this life, but I've seen over and over again that, people flirt with their higher nature but embrace their lower nature. It happens time and time again. And that just, and now with the shorter lifespan, I mean, even when people lived thousands of years and they had time to gain maturity in these things and leave really behind a body. Imagine if you lived 1,000 years and you were able to, leave behind a body of work and, a contribution to this planet. I mean, it's just, after a while, like you just mature enough. I mean, you would think you're mature enough to be able to, I mean, even if you live 200 years, where you were 70 years old and you still had, 2/3 of your life left, right? And so, I mean, imagine like that extra time where you could just, I mean, give back, like you'd establish yourself as a person. And then, of course, people would have generational wealth and things. There'd have to be a lot less people, too. You couldn't have everybody living 1,000 years because there'd be, I mean, that would be bad, like in terms of, whatever. I mean, but, you get the idea. But, like I just wrap this up here. So all the higher developed souls, all the saints that have come down, the ones that we know about, the ones that we don't, higher developed souls, and all the people who have achieved some spiritual evolution on this planet, everything that they have is available to everyone else. Like everything they accomplished can be accomplished by everybody else. Like the potential is in every human being. And it just hasn't been tapped or, embraced. And so, if you want to complain about something or you want to feel bad about something, it should be that. Because all the miseries that people have in the world, all the loneliness, all the complaints, all the, despair, all the stuff that's happening, it's because they're disconnected from divinity within them. Like there's some missing piece, there's some emptiness that people have that's not being, some, wounds and like whatever it is, these things, trust issues, all the lonely, like all the negative things that people have, depression, that all stems from it being disconnected from your soul and not following your soul's path. Like there's just something that bothers you, that you're doing something wrong, that you've gone astray, that you came down here with a purpose and you've ignored that purpose. And everyone who's ignored that purpose feels shitty in some level. And it could be alleviated by just embracing your purpose. And it doesn't have to overwhelm you. People's egos are scared of, I mean, I've always said that everyone has a potential demon and a potential saint inside of themselves. and people are scared of the being a demon, but they're terrified of the being a saint. Like they're even more scared of like and maybe even people aren't that scared of being a demon, especially now. And it's all the qualities of demonic life and egoism are being celebrated by everybody. So selfishness, greed, and all these things, sociopath. But now like it's just so degraded. But either way, people are terrified of the saint within, and of letting go and reaching their full potential. And so that's what people want to be sad about humanity or complain about humanity. It's that, and and really you can't complain when you yourself are not doing anything about it, right? Anyways, so that's my thing. Let's get into the other stuff here. Okay, today's Wednesday, June 17th. I don't know where I'm going to put this in the video for today. There's a lot of stuff to cover, and today I'm not putting up a video at all. This video is going up Thursday morning at 8 a.m. and then the next video on Friday at 2 and Saturday at 9 p.m. and then nothing on Sunday. That's 3 days and then 1 day, whatever. But I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of stuff today, and I already have some stuff for my next video that I just were going to hold on to. But I woke up this morning and Twitter recommended 2 tweets. And Twitter, whatever their algorithm is, I mean, their grok sucks. I don't, it's the worst AI I've used so far for a variety of reasons. Even though it's not, it's sort of, it's tilted towards right-wing truthers. Maybe that's why it sucks. I think it's just slapped together. I don't know. But whatever their algorithm is to recommend things to you, because I'm not subscribed to this guy, Mark Levin. But I was waiting for him to turn on Trump. Because, selfish people will always turn on each other, right? Selfish narcissists are just waiting for the moment when the person no longer serves their needs. And as soon as that happens, they turn on the person in a vicious kind of way. Like you see it with Trump all the time. You're the greatest person as long as you're kissing Trump's ass. And then if you, even give a hint of criticism, or he needs to throw you under the bus, then you're done. And Israel's the same way as a country and as these individual people. And so you knew this was coming. There's going to be a time where Trump was going to say no to Israel, or Israel's going to ask for too much, and Trump was going to have to say no, because he's never said no before to Israel, at least in terms of anything of this nature. And we knew this guy was going to turn on him because he's the worst. This guy claims to be liberty's voice. He serves another country. So these are not the tweets. This was Jack Posobiec. I don't know. He's check marked. If you stop attacking Jews, he says, they are ingrates. That's all he said, right? If you stop attacking Jews, I promise not to tell Polish jokes or okay asshole. Okay asshole? So he tells Polish jokes. Does TPUSGAY know what a disgusting slug you are? Just asking questions, ingrate. Okay, so Israel is ungrateful to Trump, right? Trump has been the best friend they've ever had in the White House, and they have done things with Trump that no other president will let them do. And now they're turning on. And then Trump's a piece of shit. I'm not a Trumper. I guess this guy has something to do with TPUSGAY. But then he said it here, they are ingrates. He's a pig. You're obviously a neocon panicking. And so he went off. These are not the comments. Say what? Like Mark Levin is like the worst of all these people. He's the most vicious. He reposted this shell piece of shit. But I don't know if he's going along with it. But here it is here. Behold, the guardian of Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. Psalm 12:4. And so that's Josh Hammer, who was TPUSGAY shill that got rolled up on by Dave Smith. Israel, the Holy Land, is nearly 4,000 years old. It owes its existence to God Almighty. See, this is problematic. This was one of the tweets that they sent me. So of all these tweets, they chose to send me the two that they knew would catch my eye. I mean, these other things are okay, but this is where this is where Trump said, if we didn't if America didn't stop, not we, if America didn't bomb Iran and Iran got a nuclear weapon, Israel would no longer exist. Now, everything owes its existence to God, but what they call God over there, and calling it the Holy Land, it's not holy, right? When something is holy, it has spiritual energy. So, in the Sajmark system of meditation that we have, there's this thing called Pranhuiti, and there's transmission, and not everybody can feel it. Like you either feel it or you don't, and some people feel it. Sometimes you can't feel it yourself. Like you're just not in a your internal condition is not. You're too restless, or something's being cleaned out, or there's just something going on. Even the most sensitive people. But when you can feel it, it is amazing. It's God's love, right? It's just like, sometimes you feel love for somebody, or you can feel love or feel loved. You can feel love in some capacity. And sometimes you just can't feel it, right? You're just depressed, you're, triggered. I mean, there's all kinds of conditions people go through. And to feel God's love, you have to be subtle and sensitive, and, you can't be drunk, and, you can't be like, any of these things. And there have been higher developed souls that have come down to planet Earth, and they had the ability to take this energy and charge, like, say, for example, idols that were going to be worshipped, or they had you just being around them. If you're around Jesus when he was, in his later years when he had some spiritual evolution, you would feel the energy. You feel the energy around spiritual people. You can feel the energy in their voice and their in their actions. You can, just being around them, they radiate these particles out. And when you meditate for some period of time, or you connect to divinity, you will affect the environment in some way. And then there are places that are just naturally spiritual. Like you go to the Grand Canyon, for example, places like that. And that's not even the best place out there. There's so many great places out there in Arizona, Utah, Nevada. And just in America in general. Like there are places you'll go in the ocean, at sunset or sunrise particularly. There's just a cleanness, a good, what we call a good spiritual condition. And so places and people and can have a good spiritual condition. Israel has the opposite of that, as far as I know. I've never been. But Master Chargi, the third master of the system, they wanted him to go to Israel. And he went to the Wailing Wall and he said, there's no spiritual energy here. I think he was being kind, or, I think he felt like it was gross as fuck, right? Because they're always humping the wall over there, and it's a weird religion. And it's the being that they worship is not God. And that, it's also for Christians that, subscribe to the Old Testament. And so you can call something the Holy Land, but, India is the real Holy Land, and India is much of a material pit. If you go there and you meditate and you feel the energy, and not in the cities. I mean, it's disgusting and gross and overpopulated. But there's like the ashrams and some of the the land. It's just there's a spiritual energy there. They're just and they really worship God there, like God in its truest form. Because in some of these other countries in that area, it's just part of who you are as a person because of the land. And it might be a material pit, and it might be like stupid shit that they do. Like there's a lot of like just, really stupid shit that goes on there, a lot of corruption, a lot of icky stuff. But the energy itself, the bones of the place. And this is just where it's the best place to go to connect to God, and has been for thousands of years. But there's places like that all over the world where, I mean, not the whole country, like the whole area, because it's never like that. But there's holy places and places where you can feel God's energy. There used to be a peace pagoda. Some Buddhists put it up in Massachusetts, and you walk up this hill, and it's kind of a spiral walk. And as you walk up, there's these different statues of Buddha, and there's these things you get up top, and the energy's there. It's crazy good. Like it's just some churches I've been in have really good energy, because of the pastor's really good, whatever it might be, the people. But the spiritual condition is real or not. Like you can feel God's energy anywhere, but Some places it's really just, it's saturated with God energy, divine energy. And Israel is not that place, right? You can claim it is, but it isn't. Because it's just, and you can see by their actions and the whole politics and all of it, the energy. And so, as he goes down here, Mike Huckabee is a great and decent man who knows the founding history. This is some bullshit he said at the, I showed you the other day. But here's the other one that they sent me. So this, again, with all these tweets, Twitter chose to send these two tweets this morning. Because I looked at his page and I was waiting for these tweets. I was waiting for the moment he was going to turn on Trump. Name one country, any country that would go along with the MOU, or deal preventing or conditioning its ability to defend itself against a massive terrorist force on its border, firing missiles and drones into towns and cities. Name one. And it has to get permission to defend itself or to not strike too hard in response to imminent or actual terror attacks. And for what? So this is a victim consciousness. Israel has been the aggressor in all these different countries. And they are, even, Charlie Kirk said he believed in the biblical land rights that Israel was promised to, God promised Israel to the Jews, and so that he believed in that, which is problematic because those are other countries, right? When he says that Israel's 4,000 years old, there has been times that there's Jewish people in Israel, and there's times that there isn't. And when it was called Palestine for a long period of time, there was not very many there. And they left, right? And so the promised land was almost, they were going to call a place called Israel in Africa. The Rothschilds were contemplating just putting a new country called Israel somewhere else where there's resources and other things, that it wasn't a desert. There was a guy who went out there to Lebanon. I can't remember the guy's name, but we took a course of his, my wife and I. It wasn't that good, but he had all these videos about ancient food forests. And he went to this area. He's an Australian guy, and he would grow these food forests and, talk about how you look at the land and see where the water flows. And, if you have a hill, you can see that the water's going to come down the hill in a certain way. And you'd use that to plant certain things and, to divert the water and keep the energy, the water within your land. You want to find a way to divert the water enough and, put different things in, swales and things. Interesting things. So, these food forests where you plant, fruit trees and nut trees, and then underneath you put, herbal plants and garden type stuff, vegetables. And, there's all these people, Sepp Pulser, one of the first food forest guys in Austria, and there's the other places. And he went to this area and he took the salt out of he found ways to desalinate the soil. They couldn't grow anything because there was too much salt in the, land in some of these places. It's desert, and how to green the desert and all these things. And so they're not great things. Okay, name one. And it has to get permission to defend itself or not strike too hard in response to imminent actual threat and terror attacks. And for what? Promised by a terrorist regime that funds terrorist proxies and seeks to annihilate it, that it will comply with a paper agreement. For the first time in its existence, to abandon its ideological ambitions. Even now, if I understand what's in play, we are stating that we can always resort to military action if Iran does not honor the obligations. If Iran fires missiles at our bases and armed forces in the region, or if we think it will do so, what will we do? What did we do? We hammered the regime, and having been accused falsely and repeatedly of committing genocide in Gaza, which we did, despite repeated reports and now subsequent reports that this is simply not true. Today, Israel is accused of blowing up buildings in Lebanon and being too aggressive. Hezbollah, which uses the same tactics as Hamas and other Iranian regime terror proxies, may literally become a protectorate of sorts. I sure as hell hope I'm misreading and mishearing things. If there is confusion, it's due to the withholding of the MOU in publicly stated comments, not to those of us who can see and hear. See, what he's leaving out here, of course it is a genocide, and they're always the aggressor, but what he's leaving out here is that as Americans, we don't want a fucking ground war, right? And the only way that they can get what they want, which is the full destruction of the Iranian country and regime and government, would be if America goes in and fights a ground war for them. Like, it's not for anybody else. It has nothing to do with anybody else. Iran is not a threat to America and hasn't been for years. And, America fucked them over years ago with the whole, Operation Ajax. I talk about that, where they took out Mossadegh and, destroyed and did what, they want. Israel wants them to do that again. And, to go in there and fuck the country up and be, in this ground war, which would destroy America. It wouldn't be the same as these other wars. Trump is doing his best to get out of this trap because it's horrible for America and it's horrible for him. And it's good for Israel, right? And so he wants America to destroy itself to give Israel what it's wanted for a long time. And, Trump gave them more than they've ever got before, but they want even more because they're takers over there. And, come on, Goy, shut up, fucking Goy. Go out there and give your blood and treasure to our country, Goy. You worthless fucking Goy. You're there to serve us, you fucking Goy, you fucking livestock, fucking slaves, right? So he's starting to, turn on Trump. And the deal, which is, not going to be a good one for Israel and for America because, maybe, Iran's going to be more empowered now because in a sense they defeated America, right? They pushed back. And so, they lost. America lost, Trump lost. And then, so whatever Israel does from here on out, in terms of Iran and what desperation, maybe they drop a nuke, blame it on fucking terrorists or some bullshit. I don't know what's going to happen here, but that's where we're at, right? And so, all these people are going to have to turn on Trump. And when they do, then who does Trump have left, right? Like, he's pissed off all the, like the anti-Israel, anti-whatever, the pro-releasing Epstein people that, the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Tucker Carlsons and all these people, they're not going to be, like, happy with Trump that he's getting out of there, right? Because it's not, it's not what he, he made a bad mistake and now he's trying to negate some part of the mistake, but it's still a mistake. And there's going to be effects from it. And I don't think he's getting out there anyway. But those people who are turned on Trump in the MAGA movement, they're not going to go back in, right? Trump went after them. It was a breakup, and it's just, it's not just about Iran. But he can't unfuck that part. And now the people that was happy with Trump going into Iran and these Israeli shills, they're going to have to go against Trump. And they're hypercritical, and they're all, venomous creatures, right? They're all selfish, narcissistic, venomous creatures. They all have venom. I talked about this in a chapter in my book, The Choice. All these people have venom. They're all poisonous, right? They're all selfish. They're all, they have this inner hatred and evil, and and when you're around people like that, you have to have venom yourself. And these people that attack each other and they tear each other down and they, kill each other, torture each other, whatever. This is, they're all like looking to make themselves higher up, better themselves in one way or another, and climb up the ladder in a very competitive way, keep the people down below them and attack the people above them, right? And you can never relax because someone's always trying to take your spot and destroy you and take your spot. And, who are above you, the people below you and the people above you are trying to keep you down. And, so they're all paranoid because everyone has venom, right? They're all fucking, they don't trust each other. There's no whatever. And so eventually it always turns into a shit fight, right? Because that's all it can go. So, all right, so I want to add this to the video for today. And I don't think there might be anything else. I don't know where I'm going to place this, either in the beginning or at the end. Those are my two options. And so, but either way, there it is. So, this is Mike J. Huckabee. And this is what that dude posted. I thought it was the same thing. That was the same from the thing I posted the other day. That was posted from whatever it was. I guess that was Ted Cruz. But this is what he said.
It's also my job to represent the importance of Israel to the United States. This is just
It's not your job. It's your job is to represent the importance of the United States to Israel. You work for the United States, motherfucker. It's not your job to go and shill for Israel in America. It's the exact opposite. As an ambassador, your job isn't to go to American people and tell them how great this country is and how important it is to them. Right? It's not your fucking job. The Israelis ambassador aren't here in America telling Americans, or Israelis how important America is to them. They're there trying to tell America how important Israel is. Like, it's just what ambassadors do, right?
Just another reminder that it is your heritage without a doubt. But Minister, it is also the heritage of the United States. Without Israel, without the Jewish Foundation, there would not be an America. We owe our very existence to what happened in this land.
Okay, so I don't know if this is the same thing. This is an old post, but they're pointing this out that he's breaking with Trump. And again, he said something similar before, so I don't know if it's the exact same time or he's just restating something. When Trump said without America, Iran would have destroyed Israel. The other thing about whatever Trump said, Iran has self-preservation. Like, I have seen it over and over again, in their political decisions over the years. So the idea that they would get a nuclear weapon and just drop it, they would get destroyed. Like, they wouldn't be... I mean, it takes forever to get the nuclear weapons to work properly. It's not just a matter of getting a nuclear weapon. It's like, they have to do all these tests, and then the missile aspect of it is a whole other thing. And so, it's not like they would have the best arsenal of nuclear weapons. They'd go from nothing to better than anything anybody had. And if they dropped a bomb on on Israel, and they would receive fallout, and all these Muslims in that area, it just doesn't stay there. There's a radioactive cloud, and it goes on for miles or whatever it is. It goes on for, depending on the way the wind blows and all these things. We saw this with Chernobyl. Chernobyl, there's radiation all the way in England. There's a woman who does, she's an English woman. She studied the effects of Chernobyl on the world. And there's radiation everywhere, like effects. And some places it just ends up landing the way the wind currents go. There's all these complex aspects, and the wind can always shift. And so, Iran dropping a nuclear weapon on Israel would immediately mean America would drop a nuclear bomb on Iran. That's how it would go, right? And no one would say shit about it. And so Iran isn't stupid. That's why they haven't tried to get a nuclear weapon, because they know they can't fucking use it. All it is a threat not to use it, right? It's a threat that they might use it. Like, so if you have it, then Israel would be less likely to fucking attack them, because they know Iran might drop a bomb on them. So, you have this mutual assured destruction. All these countries with nuclear weapons don't get invaded. This is why Gaddafi should have never gave up his weapons of mass destruction, because he would still be in power now. Like, it's a sad fact, but he gave up everything, and they took him out. So it showed to everybody in that region, if you give up everything and you cooperate, they'll still fuck you over. And so, it's incentivizing getting these weapons, like all this stuff. So, Trump saying Israel would disappear as soon as Iran had a nuclear weapon is not true. And Israel saying the same thing. Because Iran would have to say, they would have to hate Israel more than they love living, right? They would have to hate Israel so much that they want to be destroyed. And they've never shown that at all. They've never once showed that. They will do these proxy wars, but they're not self-destructive. And so as a country, it has even individual pockets. Israel is more self-destructive and more like, oh, God will take care of us kind of bullshit than Iran is. Like, they've shown it over and over again, doing risky behaviors. And, all the stuff that they're doing to America, Americans are waking up to realize what Israel's done to them, and could be like, oh, fuck Israel, and go the opposite way, right? Like, that's just how these things work. Anyway, so, they're pushing this like it's a new thing, but Huckabee clearly said it. And if he's saying it to go against what Trump said, why isn't Trump firing him? Like, when anybody in Trump's administration doubts Trump or says contradictory things, Trump gets rid of the person, right? Trump wants ass kissers. So why hasn't he got rid of Mike Huckabee? I don't know if this is recent or not, because I heard him say similar things before. Anyways. Okay, so it's Wednesday, June 17th. I decided to put those two video clips in first. I don't know why. But, that's why I chose to put them. The rest of the stuff you're going to hear, we're going to start off with Erika Kirk, and then we're going to segue into the TPUSGay guys, amongst other things. And their bloodlust for Trump's UFC and the hypocritical nature of that shit, right? Which is a big part of everything here. But this all stems from, what you hear from me consistently. And I'm 100% right about this. It's not debatable, right? The only thing that you're doing is you're debating other people's indoctrination. And I don't debate. Like, I just say that what, I believe to be the truth. And some things, predictions and prophecies, and, some things are not a complete knowledge, what they call a gestalt, where you have the complete, view of all the various levels of something. But in terms of Christianity and Judaism, and I guess to some part, some extent, Islam, which has got its own bullshit things too. The problem is the way that they describe God in the Old Testament, the way that they perceive God. And it's not what God is at all. It's the opposite. It's a demon. So it's demonic worship. It's not religion. It's demonic worship. The stuff that's in the Old Testament. And again, these things go on for years. They've lifted other stories from other parts of the world, some from India, some from Egypt. These other myths or stories that were true or whatever it was. Over time, these things get, they get distorted. But the problem with the Old Testament is that the way that they talk about God is, like I said, jealous God. I mean, all these things. It says it right there. God's a jealous God, which means God's a petty little narcissistic. I mean, jealousy is like the worst, right? There's like a possessiveness. You can't control other people. And so you have to live with other people's things that are undesirable, right? Like when you're in a relationship. And you have to decide, to some extent, at one point or another, is the stuff that they have worth it, right? like in terms of, and then is your commitment to the, when you have kids and you have these things. I mean, I'm not talking, this is just marital relationships, but it's also with friends and other people. If other people are throwing you under the bus or ditching you, they're throwing, like they see somebody that they think is better. Jared Kushner, he would be talking to somebody at a party, and he goes, okay, I'm done talking to you now. I want to find someone more important to talk to than you. He would just say shit like that, like just, blatantly, which I guess, there's some honesty there, but like, what the fuck, right? And so, if people are not valuing you or not, whatever it is, neglecting you and these things and, cheating on you or just, casting you aside for the next shiny object or whatever it might be, there's various ways that people mistreat each other. And people have their own shit that goes on that's, that may have nothing to do with you, but it's undesirable qualities that they have. And then they have good qualities that you like, right? And then there's a heart connection. And then ultimately there is this the person that God wants me to be married to? And if the answer is yes, then you have to just fucking live with it, right? In the Sajmarg method of meditation, the only reason for divorce, the only legitimate reason, is if that other person's hurting your ability to be a spiritual person, if they're thwarting your spiritual development. And that doesn't mean that they're not, sometimes their mistreatment of you is helping you spiritually. So it isn't so much that, it's whether you can really see that they're hurting your spiritual condition, they're hurting your ability to be a spiritual person. Sometimes and it might not even be a marriage, it could be your family. But if somebody's affecting your spiritual, your ability to be spiritual, they're dragging you down with them, right? And, it has to be, I mean, everybody has moments, but I'm talking about an overall type of effect, right? Where they're just draining you of your energy and blocking your ability to connect to God, right? So it took me like 4 times to get that out, right? I had the hiccups and, whatever. You get the idea. We have this hiccup straw that it has like a little hole at the end, and it actually works. It's worked a number of times for me. But anyways, if somebody's affecting your spiritual condition and your spiritual evolution, and you just even can't think about God because they're so fucking gross, or they've created a chaotic situation that's, making it impossible for you to. I mean, people have this problem where they want to connect to God, but their life is so fucked up and everything around that surrounds them is so messed up that you can't really get a moment to focus on God. Like you're just, I mean, you have to break away from it. That's why people go on retreats and you go to a new environment, and then all of a sudden things become clear, right? Sometimes it's your job, sometimes it's these things. But ultimately, you're here for spiritual evolution, so you have to remove those things from your life, right? So there's all those types of things, But in the Sajmark system, it's very clear that that's the most important thing. Does somebody positively help you connect to God? And maybe it's not being great to you, but that actually makes you more spiritual in some way. It cleans you out. Like, so, it's not a matter of how they treat you. It's a matter of, is this ordained by God, right? Is there some kind of reason why you're with somebody? And then you have to just live with it, live with these types of things. But that's, just jealousy, right? Jealousy is the inability to control other people and how they treat you. And then there's all the other ways God's petty. And God can't be that way. God can't be jealous. God can't give you the freedom of choice and then be jealous when you make the wrong choices. Or be angry and be wrathful when you make the wrong choices, right? There's parents who name their kids after them, Johnny Dildo fucking the third. Or whatever it is, right? I don't know where that came from. And, they just name you like whatever kind of, name. I just saw a comedian. There's a comedian, I think he's from Canada. Shit, I wish I would remember his name. But he's got a great bit on the George Foreman grill and how, like, they don't put an on and off switch and a bunch of shit. And George Foreman named all 5 of his kids George, including, I think, one of his daughters. Like, he named every one of his kids George. And, you have these parents, let's talk about the Indian families. And you grow up and your parents are choosing your career before you've even done it. These cultures and families that put pressure and they want you to be something, maybe an athletic. I mean, oftentimes you see this with athletes, but all kind of doctors and, the pressure to do something based on not your own destiny or your own, choosing of it, but they're forcing you to be a certain kind of person, right? But then you have parents who allow their children to just make their own decisions. And if you allow your children to make their own decisions and you just want them to find their own path, you can't be pissed when their path is, undesirable, right? Like you let them be who they are, and who they are sucks. And that happens quite often. I think especially in America. Like you can't be upset about it. Like that's who they are. You just have to accept that. You love them. You don't like them, but you love them, right? Because, I mean, it's just who they are isn't what you would want them to be, right? Or isn't somebody that resonates with you. You often have that now where, kids and parents aren't a part of the same soul family. They're in a family, a human family, but they're not really connected. They're not significant people, and they're quite different from you. I'm not talking about kids who just rebel because their parents are Trumpers and they become liberal, not shit like that. But, that's part of it. But either way, that's not how God is, right? God gave human beings the freedom of choice, and God is a loving God that is waiting for you to come back. With all the disaster and all the pain and suffering and all the things that are available, most of it's human created, right? You're only in pain because you think things should go a certain way and they don't. Like you want things to go away there where you have a pain-free existence, and that's not why you're here. Like life is, if there's pleasure, there's pain. And so you can't just have a party all the time. You have to have obstacles to overcome. And that's just natural. And death is a part of all that. Death isn't cruel. Death is just something that happens that you think is so important in this illusion where your soul is encapsulated in a body for some period of time, thinking that this is all and everything, and it certainly isn't. And so God is, none of the things that he's described as in the Old Testament. But, there's these different stories that have been smooshed together, and the Old Testament and the New Testament are smooshed together. And it's not a consistent understanding of God and a consistent understanding of how to connect to God and spiritual life. And God is, very punishing and very, you suck and you're a born sinner, these negative aspects of the way they view you. It's only of your lower nature. We all have a lower nature, but we also have a soul and a higher nature. And there's been many great souls and many great saints. So, that's the whole problem with with Israel and Jewish people and the Muslim people And the Christians and any other religion, all the other religions have their own bullshit, where God is misrepresented. And so your orientation to the world and what you think your responsibilities are and what's truth, what's truth about your relationship with God and what God wants from you, or what God, expects from you, or what you need to expect from yourself. And, you connect with that energy. You can connect with God in your soul and actually just ask the questions and find out what it is. Because, if you think you're born a sinner, and that's like how, this is your fundamental building block, what you're told when you're a little kid. This is what human beings are, and this is what God says you are, and this is what you're limited to. And so you're a piece of shit, but don't be a piece of shit because you go to jail, and, you're not supposed to be a piece of shit. But if you are a piece of shit, Jesus will die for your sins because he's already done that. So just kind of monitor your piece of shitness, and, like it's just a weird thing. It's totally not true. Right. So this is like something you won't hear from other people because they're either Christian or they don't understand. This is the most important thing. How your relationship with God and how you see that is really affects the way that you become a person in this world. Like if you see God as being, there for you and as a friend, my book, The Friend Within, which is a really important book for, it's a kid's book. It should be like everybody should have it and read it to their kids because God's your friend. God's with you. God wants what's best for you, right? More than anybody else, more than anything else in the world, God, your parents or anybody. And parents often don't want what's best for you because they're all fucked up, right? But God wants what's best for you. Your soul wants what's best for you. And if you connect with them, they'll help guide you. They're not going to force you to do anything, but they'll help guide you to make the right decisions and move forward with your life. And think if everybody had that attitude. Like if you were given that as a kid and you had that, an idea and not just told about it, but you like really internalized it. People internalize that idea that God, you're not a piece of shit sinner. You're not just a horrible person. That those decisions that you would make are bad for you. You make bad decisions that are going to lead to screwing over a future version of yourself, right? Like things that you're doing today that screw you over later on. Tuesday Paul screwing over Thursday Paul. We all do it. We all make decisions. It could be a matter of just eating something wrong or, whatever. It's like, taking the wrong drug, supplements, drugs, or foods, or whatever. Certain things, bad choices, right? Alcohol and drugs and, being around bad people, making bad decisions. You're committing a crime today that you're going to be in jail for in 2 years or something. You're doing something now that you're going to have to pay for. And so, and it seems like it's a good idea at the time. You really want to do it, but actually it's fucking horrible. Like no matter how great the thing seems to be, pregnancies are like, you go out and you have a strong biological urge for sex, and then you have there's the pleasure aspect as well, and overwhelming, just like with foods and things like this, cravings for things, and you have these things, and you make these decisions based in, a desire base that isn't, the pleasure you receive from the act costs you 18 years of raising a kid, which is, it's okay if you plan that, but if it's just some random thing, you're not ready for it. All these things, or any number of things, right? A marriage you don't want. All the things that go with it. And so you have these decisions that you have to make, and you have a heart that lets you know what your soul thinks about those decisions, right? Like if you follow your heart, there's people that you wouldn't interact with, but if you're like, lustful and you're following your lower nature, your lower chakras, your lower, desire-based gut level stuff, and you be with somebody sexually, and they get pregnant, or whatever, or you get impregnated by a guy that's a piece of shit, and then you're bound to that person for fucking 18 years, right? Because of the, a momentary, lapse of judgment, because your soul and your heart would have said, no, get away from this motherfucker, right? You don't want any part of this person. Like, you don't want to be connected, but you've just connected yourself. There's these things that happen in life. And so if you learn to follow your connect with the divinity within you and let your heart and God and your soul guide you to make these decisions, then all these things are avoided in ways that you can't even appreciate because you didn't experience the other thing, right? But then you experience, if you could just see what your life would have been like if you made that decision, you'd be like, holy shit, So that's when you have God as a friend. But if you're scared of God, that great quote from Master Charge, he said, Christians are scared of God. They don't want to face God directly. It's like you're scared of your boss. So you go to your boss's son and go, can you talk to your dad for me? So the son's more approachable. And so they have a son, right? They have Jesus. He's like like somebody that they can, because they're scared of God, because God's in the Old Testament, it's like a piece of shit, wrathful, demonic motherfucker. So they go to Jesus and say, because they're always worried about what God will order them to do. And God's got an obsession with cutting off your foreskin, all these random fucking bullshit things that are in there that have been just placed. Oh yeah, God said this, God said that. No, that's not God at all. And you guys are just making shit up as you go along, and you're putting this in this book. And so it warps a person's ability to understand their true purpose. Because if you understand the nature of God and your nature of your relationship with God, then you understand your true purpose, a spiritual purpose in your soul. And then, of course, they don't try to exclude past lives. They don't want you to believe there's a past life because, well, then they don't have a hold on you, right? And so all these things are really important to understand. And so, I talk about these things all the time, and, I don't know if they fall on deaf ears or whatever. I don't know what people can do about them. Post your indoctrination, you can kind of understand it. But the stuff that's going on with Israel and the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians is, it's not the conflict that happens now and the hatred between them and all the other bad behaviors. It's their relationship to what their knowledge or their faulty knowledge and their indoctrination to believe in God is angry and vengeful and these things when God is none of those things. You have divinity within you. God's not going to punish himself. Why would he do that? Like, he's depressed and, God is all loving. God can't be anything else. That's why God can't have an ego or a mind. God can't be separate from anything or anybody. And so when you understand that, there's this energy there. And God's given you everything you need to succeed. But you've been warped and twisted in the wrong direction to understand what your life's really about. And so this is people all being all fucked up. And it starts off with, all right, what is God and what is my soul and what is my purpose here? Fundamental questions. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And if you had the proper guidance and you had the proper understanding and you had a system and culture and people around you who they themselves have connection with the divinity within them, so they know the right things to say and the right way to help you as a young person and guide you. And you have these examples of other people who are connected to the divinity within them, you'd see the society would be nothing like it is now. Because everyone would be on the right track. They would be becoming what they ought to be, right? They're becoming the best version of themselves. And so this is where it all starts. And, so those things have to go. All these religions, all these ways of understanding about God have to go. All these New Age practices that people are doing that are warping ancient wisdom to find a better material life and get more power and more, to be a disruptor and all this shit that these liberals believe. It's all fucked up, right? Like God is whatever God is, and it's your ability to understand the true nature of God that helps you have a successful existence here, not materially successful, but successful in the standpoint that you have a soul's path, and it helps you realize that soul's path, your ultimate soul's journey. Okay, so let's start on Twitter. So every morning my phone recommends to me, or they recommend on my phone, a tweet or something that's happened on Twitter. And I'm not subscribed to Erika J. Kirk. And I don't know how many things she tweets, but this was, they do a good job of figuring out what I'll click on, right? So, Erika J. Kirk, Mrs. Erika Kirk, the left wants the White House to feel like an untouchable institution reserved for political elites. They hate seeing it used for events that remind Americans it belongs to them. Okay, so the majority of Americans are not into UFC. I mean, it's a fringe sport. And this isn't the left. They always talk about the left like they want to get it back to where they're hammering the left. If you go to TPUSGAY with the two Twinks, and if you go to any of their events, they're always trying to hammer the left. But, the left is totally happy about Erika Kirk. And I think they're pretty happy about Trump because they know that they are going to become powerful. They're going to have power back because of Trump. and Erika Kirk and the rest of them, right? TPUSGAY is no longer a threat to the left. They don't give a shit about it. They, will mock Erika Kirk like everyone else. The people who are really upset, the people who are trolling them, the people who show up at their events and say that that Erika Kirk protects pedophiles are, this is MAGA on MAGA crime. The worst thing you can do is betray your group. Like if your enemies who are on the opposite side, they expect you to be a right-wing piece of shit or a left-wing piece of shit. They expect it from you. And they love to talk about you. They love to use you as a way to get, dumb fucks to give them money. I mean, that's what it's about, right? Left-right paradigm, these giving left-right cover. AOC says something stupid and the right can use it as a way to get support and motivate people and get money. Like, this is how it works. This is how politics works, all these things. And so they love to talk about the left, but the left just doesn't, Erika Kirk's there to be mocked occasionally, but it's the right that's obsessed with her. It's her against Candace. It's MAGA on MAGA crime. The left wants the White House to feel like an untouchable institution reserved for political elites. They hate seeing it used for events that remind Americans it belongs to them. Turning the White House into a place of celebration, culture, and public engagement, especially as we approach America's 250th anniversary, strips away the myth that government is something distant and above the American people. Okay, so what if the Obamas had like a Chicago level African American block party on the White House lawn? You'd be saying that, Erika Kirk, you fucking piece of shit racist motherfucker. Like you right-wing people would be saying that, right? That would be okay. If like when you guys are already criticizing when Biden brought all those transgenders and people out there, and again, that was on the lawn. They didn't set up a whole fucking arena right in front of the White House that was gaudy as shit. And it's always lowbrow crap, right? You're saying that America's a bunch of fucking retarded. They're a bunch of retarded. So, that's what you're saying. No surprise that Democrats despise last night's UFC event, but what truly frustrates them is what it represents, a White House that feels like the people's house again. You think this is the people's house? This fucking bullshit military flyover when you have a president that's selling out who almost sold out ground troops and shit to Israel and still may. I mean, just, like, this is embarrassing. Like, it's just lowbrow fucking crap. I mean, look at this thing, right? And to have these, violent fights, and it seemed all kind of faked and contrived and staged, and just on lots of levels, it was bad. This guy, Justin Gagey, who said that he's like a true American, beat up some guy who's, has a foreign accent and who was favored. And Trump is meeting his mom. Apparently, they introduced his wife, the announcers, as Ivanka Trump, the first lady. And Jimmy Kimmel made a joke, or his joke writers made a joke, that Trump finally got his wish that his daughter was married to him and the first lady. And then they were meeting the Gageys, the mom and the son. It's kind of odd that on Trump's birthday, the guy who likes Trump ends up winning the fight, right? Like, that's not coincidental. And so, they're just the fucking lowbrow bullshit that they displayed here. And Erika Kirk and them tone deaf, thinking that it's the left that gives a shit about them, right? The left is happy to have Erika Kirk fucking destroying TPUSGAY. So, this piece of shit, who may or may not be AI, in Lebanon and Syria, where, by the way, we eliminated all of Assad's army weapons that were a threat, and then in the security were a threat, and then he says, in the security zones, as long as required to protect them, our country, well, that's it. Like, they did the shitty job with the translation. But what he's saying is they're not leaving Lebanon because they've gained access to it. And they're not giving up land. And they're land grabbing, aggressive piece of shits over there. And this is, and we'll see what this does to the deal and all the things that go down. But he's not capitulating with Trump and Trump has all the leverage other than, personal shit that Netanyahu may or may not have on Trump that may or may not come out, right? But either way, Netanyahu's not going to get the same deal from Democrats or anybody else because there's such anti-Israeli sentiment. Let's look at this here. So this was Sean Strickland. Trump is in the Epstein files being arrested, which is a great thing. And that thing seems all fake. I talked about like why does he have his camera, his phone in the fucking paddy wagon right as he's being taken to jail, or who's taping? Someone has a phone and he's doing an Instago live from the back of the truck. Like this thing seems all staged. But there's anti-Israeli sentiment and certainly the Epstein stuff and a growing dissatisfaction with Trump. There's people at the right wing who are, they see Trump as a piece of shit shill, and that, this is going to be division because you're going to have, like the Democrats have always had this, where they have the liberals, and then they have the sort of moderate Democrats, and the liberals always lose, and then the liberals will be so scared of a Republican regime, or Trump in this case, more recently, that they'll come in and vote anyway, even though they don't like Hillary Clinton, they don't like Joe Biden, because they're liberals, right? They want Bernie Sanders, but they get stuck with Hillary Clinton. And they have more people, but it's harder for them to get the vote out because they're not passionate. Where Republicans vote, and Republicans stay more united. They've always had their right-wing fringe people, and then they have the more moderate Republicans. But nobody divided that like Trump, who called the old school Republicans rhinos, Republican in name only. And Trump is the most non-Republican person because he was never a Republican. Like he was a Democrat for a while, Republican, but he doesn't have a sense of like a dogma or some kind of belief system. He just does what's best for Trump, and sometimes it's the Democrats, sometimes the Republicans. If you're a good businessman, you don't want to be either one. You want to have, you can buy a party, or you can buy a group of people, or you can go back and forth and buy individual politicians. But either way, Trump is a piece of shit, and many people know it, and the Republican Party is going to be completely divided now, just like Erika Kirk's TPUSGAY is divided, like all of it, like as you can see it. And it's going to be fractured politics from now on. And you're going to have these extremist MAGA people that still, have some, in some places they have some support, but the majority of people in America are not into it. And the majority of MAGA people are bailing on Trump and certainly on Israel. And so Israel's taking on from both the left and the right. And, I think that they've realized their time has run out controlling America the way they have. They're not going to give up on it. They still own the media and these other things. But in terms of getting direct support and getting these things, let me see if I can find that Ted Cruz thing. They didn't have to roll out their shills like this blatantly. Hopefully they won't copyright this because it's fucking I don't know if he put the music there or they did. This is from APAC.
Today, more than ever before, the U.S.-Israel alliance and friendship is under assault. It's under assault from forces in the United States that would try to break that friendship. I think that's profoundly dangerous. America is friends with Israel because it is unambiguously in America's national security interest.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to say that. And, the one thing that Tucker Carlson did well was demonstrate the difference between the American economy and what Israel has to offer and what America has to offer. And there's no, America has relationships with countries like Israel's side, where the country's like some little beggar, like you see with Homelander and the fucking Boys show, where they got all these sycophants that come up and are, begging America to give them something, right? Begging America to partner with them. Like, you're some big corporation, some little companies begging for you to take over and, buy them out or, whatever it is, right? Rich people and poor people. And there's almost, insignificant benefit to America. There's some strategic benefit in the Middle East. But America has bases all over the Middle East, closer to the oil. It doesn't need Israel. Israel's does some shit in there, but Israel does more harm than good. Of course, Israel's done a lot of fucking stealing. Israel steals from America all the time, spies on America, undermines American people, poisons America. Just all that, intellectually and, physically. Israel does so many things, bad things to America. And it's like they're equals. America's begging Israel to be a parasite, right? It's just so bad. because it buys these politicians and all these other, influential positions. But now they have to come out and say this stuff, right? Hey, Goy, you fucking Goy, you're lucky to have a relationship with us. Like this.
To be friends with Israel. Israel is fighting the enemies of America. Every Hamas terrorist that Israel kills, every Hezbollah terrorist, every IRGC terrorist makes America safer.
Yeah, it doesn't do that at all. They don't have any presence here in America. I mean, even if they were bad and they didn't have like a legitimate beef with Israel, these groups, which they do, all of them, and if they didn't, if they didn't have a legitimate beef or a hatred for America, of course they're going to say death to America. But that's all they can do. They can't do anything here. Nothing, they can't. None of these countries could hurt America, right? Maybe kill a few Americans or do some, minor bit. But usually that's going to be some false flag type of thing, right?
We stand with Israel because standing with Israel makes Americans safer. And when the Ayatollah chants death to Israel and death to America, he means it.
He means it.
And those voices in American politics that want to engage in appeasement are profoundly undermining U.S. national security.
I thought he said dark forces here. Or was it? Or maybe I missed it. Okay, so they said dark forces, but he said... Anyways, like this is what they have to do. Like this is bad. Like this AIPAC making this fucking shell dance. Dance, Goy. Fucking beg for your shekels, Goy. Beg for them, you fucking prideless piece of shit. You traitorous motherfucker, right? You traitorous motherfucker. Dance, Goy, dance. So to my understanding, this is peroxide, and this is the reflecting pool. Or as Trump calls it, the reflecting pond or lake. It's bigger than skyscrapers. You can see right here what it says on the can. You really can't see it, but it might say hydrogen peroxide. It's not very clear. And they have it, and it's already greening up. I mean, I don't know, maybe chlorine bleach. I mean, look at the size of that fucking thing. To keep that thing, I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, you don't need it like fucking, this is a lost cause. I mean, I have this little pond that I've created, and it has huge lily pads this year. The lily pads we have 4 or 5 lotus flowers. 2 of them are blooming. 3 of them are coming up. And huge lily pads, like big ones, big fucking lily pads. And it's taking up most of the pond. And so the sun isn't getting in there, isn't creating carpet weed. But it's a whole fucking thing, just the whole... I mean, I have to be in charge of keeping it clean and just whatever. It takes a lot of maintenance and the pump that makes it up to you guys have probably seen the pond, there's a whole thing that I've created there. It's an ecosystem. It's neat. I spend a lot of time looking at it, but it takes a lot of effort. And we have a bigger pond that is getting crazy with cattails, which keeps it clean. Ever since the cattails have grown, there hasn't been any fucking algae-based stuff, and it's making it into a nice natural area, but the cattails are taking over. And, we go kayaking there and have this thing that you have to... It's this dangerous fucking razor blade type fucking thing that it cuts the cattails. But you have to throw it out there and pull it back on a rope. It's a whole fucking thing, right? It's like a good workout. But, like you fight nature. Like you're fighting nature. And if you have a pool, you know about this. Like you have to put shit in there. Like I don't like, chlorine. I mean, it's basically a form of bleach. Some people have salt water they add to their pools, make it like the ocean. But either way, it's you have to put a lot of effort and input to keep it from just going south like this, right? Because, nature is like, it's hard to fucking beat. Like nature will just overwhelm you. And if we didn't have machines and we didn't have the technology we have, there'd be a lot of like nature, just the jungle and the forest and it only takes 50 years for nature to reclaim a city and turn it back into a natural area. Like if people abandon a city, in 50 years, all the trees and all the plants and all the things start growing through the cement. I mean, it's consumed by the natural environment that's there. Or the sand buries it in sand, right? There'll be like fucking, all these structures out in the desert and the sand. They'll be under sand in a number of years, right? So nature always wins. Okay, so there's this. I mean, Trump just, the clown thing just works. Trump always is called a clown. And this is 12% hydrogen peroxide confirmed. I don't know what else it has in there, but they're fighting a losing battle. Look at this dude. Look at how mad she is about the Iranian, reconstruction in Iran over fuck whatever. Look at this motherfucker. Look at this big-headed motherfucker. I bet you have a real cunt for a wife. Look at Sean Strickland. What a hero giving the fingers. And what a fucking hero. What a truth teller. Who's this? Look at this. Kaboom. All right, that's clever. There's this clown punching Michelle Obama just above her her manhood, and then pulls off her wig. Trump raising the white flag. Ted Cruz licking some boot. He prefers to lick taint. MAGA coming to my post and defend Trump and Melania. That's great. Without the United States, there'd be no Israel, Trump says. The five people, well, fucking to show the five. Worst timing in history. What's happening there? Don Jr. just pulled out of his coat pocket and put it in his mouth. They think it's drugs. This fucking piece of shit. Yeah, you guys get the idea. And so then there was this. In nature, if a monkey hoarded 1 trillion bananas, the other monkeys would beat that monkey to death and take his bananas. Well, no, because if a monkey had bananas, they would just take the bananas, right? And it wouldn't be just monkeys. You see animals stealing food from each other all the time. Like animals steal food. And, there's monkeys in India. My kids went to this, some kind of place, like something like the White House or something like that. It wasn't political, but, a park where there's some, whatever. And they went with a group of kids, or I don't know who they were traveling with. And there are monkeys there. They have those big, I think they're macaques, or rhesus monkeys, macaques maybe. Kind of big, not quite baboon size. And the monkeys went up and just grabbed ice cream cones from their friends' hands. They just take shit right out of your hands. And they walk up, you're eating something, they just take it from you. And you see this, I used to cover this. I used to talk about how, people have become pussies, and seagulls are taking fucking hot dogs away from people. Right as it's going into the person's mouth, seagull will swoop down. There was a seagull that went into a grocery store and stole a sandwich and then came out, and some woman was upset by it. She's trying to chase it around, and the seagull fucking gets away with the sandwich. This kind of stuff happens. We have our two dogs. Tulsi found a golf ball on the beach, and we started throwing it to her. And then we got a smaller bouncy ball for Buddy, like a super ball. And one of the super balls is like orange, and it's different. They come in different colors. We bought like a pack of them. And one of them is like orange and yellow. And sometimes Buddy wouldn't chase the ball. And I threw it to him. He didn't chase the ball. And a seagull came down, grabbed it, and realized it wasn't food, and dumped it right in the middle of the fucking ocean. Right? And it just took off. But anyways, animals that just take food. They don't kill with a hoarder. Like, they're not conscious, you're hoarding shit. Like, animals will, try to take as much as they can, and then, but then they get full and they walk away, and they come back. And that's why, dogs bury bones, and sometimes the thing's there, sometimes it's not, so animals will find your food and take it. There's no, Buddy and Tulsi will take each other's food, right? And so Tulsi will kill a mouse, and Buddy will come back and grab it, when she walks away or whatever. And then she's like, hey, that was my mouse. And it's like, fucking possession's 9/10 of the law, whatever it is. All right, here.
Speaking of toll crossings, looks like there's now going to be tolls for anybody who wants to cross the Strait of Hormuz.
Look how happy this dude is. You notice how the liberals are really happy when I show you a video from, left-wing media? Notice how the liberals are pretty happy these days? Right? Trump's shitting the fucking bed. He's fucked you. He's fucked MAGA. He's fucked Republicans. He's fucked the right. And then the consequences are going to fall on you. Trump's walking away with fucking bank. He's corrupt. He's made all this money. He's going to die. His family, basking in his dumbass fucking kids and fucking shitty people. All the, these people who are around him are going to, they're going to have all this wealth that he's grifted. Your wealth, your money, his corruption. And he's going to leave you with the fucking bill, right? Especially right-wing MAGA people. And the left is loving it, right?
Now, technically, I guess it's illegal to call them tolls, but according to new reporting tonight in the New York Times, Iran apparently thinks that the outcome of this war they just won against the United States is going to include Iran having the ability for the first time to charge everyone fees to transit the Strait of Hormuz. You're not allowed to call it a toll, so they're calling it a fee.
It's a fee. It's a fee, this thing. Look at how happy that dude is.
The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is in a position with regard to the government that is as strong, if not stronger, than it was before. Somehow, Iran maintained enough military capability to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed all this time, a form of lifting previous sanctions or unfreezing previously more confident in its nuclear ambitions now that they know that the most powerful country...
This dude's listing all the ways Iran has benefited.
...level out anytime soon thanks to the damage. That's not even considering the economic impact of what we spent in terms anymore about Israel's leader without using four-letter words, even in public. Remember when Donald Trump said the only way this war would end would be unconditional surrender? He maybe should have specified which country he meant by that.
Kaboom! Look at how happy he is.
He also said the war would result in a great civilization being destroyed. Remember that? And again, maybe he should have been more specific as to what he meant by that, but I'm just saying.
And look how happy you are, bro.
This is what he had happening at the White House, the actual White House, as he got ready to sign the supposed agreement with Iran.
Again, totally happy about this, right? Totally happy about this Black Rifle Coffee Company getting their shill on.
Crying uncle and agreeing that he lost the war he himself started. Motorcycle circus at the White House.
Nitro Circus, bro.
Here's the headline in the New York Times tonight on Trump's efforts to end the war in Iran. Quote, Trump winds down the war he started with goals unmet.
All right, so that's the first piece, right? So they're very happy. Like this bullshit thing with Erika Kirk. The left is totally happy with what's happened. We got a TPUSGay update, too. We're going to... these two dudes are in a relationship. Mika's the top and Gummy Joe's the bottom.
Oh, great. That's going to bring peace to the world. That's going to bring peace to Iran. Then show it. Show it to the world. Why? Again, we still are hearing very little about it. Even Lindsey Graham said it's hard to support a deal when the only thing you hear about the deal comes from Iran. That's the first thing. Second thing is, we don't know what's going to happen. You never know how history unfolds. We don't know if this...
All right, so... if he's hiding the deal, Trump loves to show off his accomplishments or even his failures as accomplishments. And one way you do that is you hide the fucking terms of the deal. Because when the terms of the deal come out, it's going to be bad. Like Trump is going to, it's just going to be an ass kicking from now on. Israel's bailed on him. He has nobody. Like he's lost. He's got a bunch of dumb fucks who have no power and money, and then he's got whatever. Like the Republicans are going to start bailing on him as he loses the midterms, and then he's just going to be, a whiny piece of shit, right? Like a clown fucking Jabba the Hutt up there. Right, Mika? So here's Trump throws the most insane party in the White House, and the left completely melts down. White House USC victor calls Michelle Obama a man in victory speech. All right. So two good jumping points. I think Blake is either on vacation... Like this, they're getting rid of Blake, and they're just thinking like that's gonna give Andrew just like Blake's holding him back. Blake's just too gay for the There he is. Fucking Blake is back.
It's a great. I definitely can't stay away today. We have massive important news and we have massive fun neuse, and that's a good combo to have.
This I can't stay away today. I can't stay away today. I can't do it. I can't do it.
He's beaming in Blake. Fucking nobody watches you. You make it sound like you have an audience. all the comments you get are fucking negative. Nobody is happy about you taking over a channel called Charlie Kirk when Charlie Kirk is not a part of it. And the memory of Charlie Kirk isn't a part of it. And nobody likes you. You're unlikable. You couldn't do this on your own. You shouldn't be doing this job. Like, anybody else would be fired. And they got these two twinks, you know, these two fucking beta males sharing a testicle. And Blake is on vacation, but he can't stay away. He can't, you know, he's got to come on and suck over this whole thing.
This is the theme today, is no bad vibes. Everything is honestly looking great. And you know, it's funny. We have Rich Bears coming on the show about in the half-hour mark. And he was basically like, I'm so excited. I'm like, Rich, are you going to be Black Pill Rich today? He's like, absolutely. Are you kidding me? Like, this is amazing. And, you know, by the way, if you watched the UFC Freedom 250 at the White House last night, I want to hear from you. Send us your emails, freedom@charliekirk.com. Blake is going to be monitoring the inbox like usual.
He likes to monitor my inbox. Blake's always monitoring my inbox. Right, Blake?
But I just thought it was tremendous. I mean, I know we've got this Iran deal. President Trump is meeting with Emmanuel Macron as we speak. It's a bilateral meeting as part of the G7. So he gets done with this incredible UFC event
that he slept through for most of it.
Was just so beautiful and so well done, and the production value was incredible. And yeah.
I'm going to save myself some aggravation. I'm just going to get rid of the fucking UFC stuff because I know that they'll copyright. It's on Paramount. Paramount sucks. I'm editing now, but so you're only going to see half a screen. You're going to see Blake, Blake, and you're going to see Andrew Covert and whatever, but you're not going to see the UFC fight. There's an image later on you get to see where they celebrate the guy getting his fucking face smashed. But anyways, so that's why you're going to see what you're going to see, because otherwise CBS will copyright it.
You can see the video right there. And you know,
it was embarrassing. The fucking thing was embarrassing. It was lowbrow, and you guys aren't fucking UFC, fucking tough guy, fucking right wing. You guys are gay, fucking metrosexual, effeminate, you know, she-males.
The fighters coming out of the White House, that's their walk-up. I mean, it was just amazing.
Yeah, that wasn't great. That was fucking horrible.
And then he gets on a plane and flies to Europe for the G7. So it's just, you know, tremendous, the energy.
Who's this gay cowboy? Did you guys have any straight guys in the fucking Republican Party?
See that octogenarian, he's officially 80 years old now. It was his birthday on Saturday, so happy birthday.
This guy prancing around. He's from fucking Brazil. This is a Brazilian guy coming out of the fucking Oval Office dancing around.
Mr. Trump, President Trump. But the whole thing was...
The Village People? Is that the fucking Village People that Trump loves so much?
Just tremendous. Look at that. It's just stunning. And
it's fucking stunning. It's the most fucking gaudy thing ever. Like, this is like building south of the border or a Buc-ee's on fucking the White House lawn.
Right there. And then, Blake, on top of everything, the fight with Justin Gaethje to win the final fight.
It was perfect.
The
card.
Was
perfect.
Yeah, it's so perfect. It's so perfect. It's like it was staged. This guy's foreign, and he's from wherever this flag is. Justin Gaethje is a complete Trumper and one of these fake fucking patriots. And he met his mom and met before, and somehow, even though this guy was favored, I don't know what flag is that. Don't tell me. Don't care. Don't need to know. But it sounds like he has some kind of Hispanic accent. And so, you know, it's a white American fucking pseudo patriot beating up a Hispanic. You know, it was so perfect.
Seeing the B-roll right now, if you're watching, this guy had just KO'd, knocked out the last three opponents he'd fought against, and these were not schlubs. These were like the top guys.
Top guys. They were like the top guys. The top battlers, the top of these, you know, these aggressive guys out there in their tight shorts, and they're monitoring each other's inboxes.
In the lightweight division of UFC, and you know, this guy is so fast, you can see him. He's like a pit bull, and he really did body shot Justin Gaethje a couple times. Really hurt him. Said he hurt his liver real bad.
Real bad. He hit my liver. He hit my liver, and I still liver. Right, Blake?
But Gaethje put him in the hospital. He had an ocular.
Yeah,
His
no.
ocular bone got broke in the fight. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Blake.
it was my friend who's a big UFC fan. First of all,
By friend, you mean lover?
going in, he was telling me, okay, this has been a fun night. Now we get to watch Gaethje get destroyed. He was not hyped up on him at all. He said, this is a very imbalanced fight. He was predicting a big walkover, and this guy was about a decade older than his opponent. He's near retirement, but he's an American patriot from very near us. He's from a small mining town here in Arizona.
In Arizona, he likes to mine. He likes to check his friends' inboxes, like we do. Like right, Andrew.
And he got this massive upset over this incredible. I think he was previously undefeated.
Yep.
And then he delivered his big speech celebrating America, and it was one of those perfect instances. We joke sometimes that
They celebrated America's speech. He celebrated America in his speech. It was just so perfect. I wonder if they're going to copyright this whole thing. I'm going to have to make it blur that thing or cut it out because fucking here he is.
rainbow, and they'd have.
Okay, so let's get to the part where they liberals.
Support you guys. First and foremost, thank you. And all glory to God, I prayed so much for this opportunity to do something legendary. And I know that was absolutely legendary because I cannot even believe it. Wow.
He can't even believe it. It's just so legendary and he can't believe it.
That was
250
amazing.
years ago. Yeah.
We were bigger dogs then. I loved that. I loved every aspect of it. And
He just loved it. All right, I'm going to have to probably cut that out. We'll see. Paramount fucking copyrights everything. And so, anyways.
it was a very fun watch.
And here's the thing, Blake. To all the haters, to all the black pillars, to all the nihilists, to all the like burn it down people, look at that. The Delta Formation flying over.
Look at that. This is so fucking amazing. Our war, our death planes to drop bombs on children and of all countries around the world and shit like that, and fucking contaminating the fucking atmosphere with carbon emissions and all this shit that's happening, and fucking going over the White House with those fucking dick planes. I mean, it's so amazing. All the fucking black pillars out there that want to talk about how our country's falling apart and how Trump's running into the ground and the world's fucking fucked up and how fucked up it is. And even though Charlie Kirk ran on, his whole thing was about how everything's so fucked up, the education system's fucked up, and how kids are all fucked up and everything's so distorted and twisted towards liberalism. And we talked about how Joe Biden was wrecking the country and we're all going to be doomed. And Trump said that if Joe Biden was elected again, the country would be fucking doomed. And even though we said all that shit, you guys who were complaining about what's obviously some gaudy, lowbrow, fucking trailer trash shit that they just did in the front lawn of the White House, you guys are a bunch of black pillars. Stop whining, black pillars. You fucking goy. Shut up, you fucking goy.
This like $70 million production at the White House. You have staff.
Who paid for that? Who paid for that? Fuck. You fuck. Who did you pay for it? Out of your fucking Israeli shill money, or did we pay for it, the taxpayers?
Sergeant Hannah Davis singing you soprano the whole time. And you had the ellipse was filled with 80,000 more people for a giant watch party just outside beyond the White House. And so the visuals were just incredible. But this is
fuck for dumb fucks. Visual dumb fucks, right, Blake?
what we just want to remind you is that you do not fight because you know you're going to win. Justin Gaethje did not fight that fight because he knew he was going to win. He was a 6-1 underdog, and he pulled it off. We don't fight because we know we're going to win. We fight because it's the right thing to do. We fight.
It's not the right thing to do. You're being paid to destroy yourself and somebody else. Every one of these motherfuckers is fucked in the head because of headshots, right? They all have fucked. I mean, you can't take that kind of abuse. Joe Rogan said that he didn't want to do this kind of fighting because he was getting headaches. And he talked about going into the fucking locker room after these guys fight. Some guy had his ocular bone broken. The guy who fought Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje was talking about how his liver hurt because he got a fucking liver shot. How do you think that's going to play out? He probably went out and fucking got drunk because he's a real American, right? I mean, these dumb fucks, right? Like, all these athletes, they expend their youth, they sell their youth, their old age, their health in their old age, they give it up. Like, they burn themselves out, right?
physically. And these fighters, more than anything else, are taking headshots, right? Getting punched in the head is not good for you. Like, despite what you've heard, I mean, maybe, you know, once in a while getting slapped, you know, I mean, metaphorically, like once in a while, so something happens to you, it wakes you up a little bit, right? But taking fucking headshots for a number of years, and it's not just the fight, because they, you know, they have to train. They have to get used to taking fucking hits, right? You know, they get punch drunk. They're fucking, you know, and after a while they just get beaten down. And then all the other things that happen in your physical body, arthritis in your hands and arm, you know, these things that happen. So it's not the right thing to do. It's not. It's selling yourself like so people can watch two people beat the shit out of each other. I mean, you know, I used to like boxing, but it was too much holding and grabbing. Plus, it's so fucking gay. You know, how many? Every one of these UFC fights end up with one guy on his back. I mean, the ones that last, with the other guy on top of him. And so the bottom guy, to keep from getting his ass kicked because he's in a vulnerable position, he hugs the guy's head, pulls the guy's head down, and he pulls the guy's body into his body by getting into the missionary position, wrapping his legs around the other guy's back, and then, you know, having their crotches fucking touch each other. And so the guy tries to beat the shit out of him in some fucking erotic, you know, gay violent thing that's happening. The whole thing's fucking weird. It's not the right thing. It certainly isn't the right thing for the White House, or, you know, I mean, and I'm all for degrading the White House. I always liked when Trump did that, because I'm not patriotic and I don't give a shit about any of these fake fucking things, these fake politicians trying to make this highbrow, trying to make it more than it is. I love it when it gets degraded, but don't pretend it's not degrading. It's fucking totally degrading it. It's low consciousness, right?
Because we need to keep going. You do not give up on your team just because they're down. You do not give up on your team just because they are down. If the Dodger team right now, which is in first place, God bless them, but if they were in last place after winning 2 World Series, would you give up on them? Would you walk out on the team?
Yeah, fuck those losers, those fucking goy. Get out of here, fucking goy.
No, you fight to make the team better. Would Doc Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, would he be in his right to just abandon the effort, to give up? No. So, listen, I don't know what's going to happen in the midterms. I don't know what's going to happen in 2028. All I know...
You're going to get your ass kicked. Yeah, we all know what's going to happen. And you guys fucking suck, and you're laundering money or doing whatever you fuck you're doing to pretend you have a business, because nobody likes you. You're in the business of influencing people, and nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Nobody agrees with you. And they come in to just troll you every fucking day. And read the fucking comments, read the room. You're wearing a fucking USA shirt under your gay fucking blazer. Where's fucking Blake anyway?
know is that last night was a beautiful, beautiful reminder that we live in the greatest country in the history of the world.
It's not the greatest country in the history of the world. What an arrogant fucking thing to say. What makes America great? What, like fucking shit like this? You're saying that this fucking gaudy gladiator, gay fucking boxing, UFC dick rubbing thing is what makes America great? The two guys beating the shit out of each other in their fucking underwear? That's what makes America great? With a bunch of fucking dumb fucks cheering them on? Bloodthirsty dumb fucks who don't like to fight themselves but can't. They love the violence of seeing two other people fight for no reason. People who don't even like people, and oftentimes who don't dislike each other or, don't care about each other personally, have no beef with each other, just doing it for fucking money, wrecking their lives, their faces, cauliflower ears, fucking CTE, all that shit that happens. Like, that's worth it. That's what makes America great. That's what makes us greater than any other country in the history of the world. This lowbrow, low consciousness, white trash shit that just took place at the White House. You're saying that's what makes America great. You gay dumb fuck, right?
Proud to be an American. I'm proud of this country. I'm proud of this administration. I'm proud that they're getting peace deals signed, MOUs signed.
Okay, your Israeli handlers aren't proud. Shut up, Goy. Like, you went too far there, Goy. We're not paying you to tell you that this Iranian fucking losing deal that Trump just admit we lost the war and bend over and has taken it on his fucking birthday, no less. Right? And he runs off to France. He runs off to France. Right? All right, so that's the first thing. All right, this is a Michelle Obama is a man thing, right?
Comes out in the third with a new strategy, gets the guy on the back foot, and then in the fourth round...
Gets the guy on the back foot? What do you mean by that? Would you get guys on your back foot? Like,
It was cinematic. He was near the point of victory, but to finish it off, I'll never forget it. He just picks him up and he knees him right in the side. The guy goes back to the stool and just says, "I'm done. I'm not going back."
that was wonderful. When you kneed him in the side, you like that? When you picked him up and kneed him in the side, you like that? You two gay motherfuckers. You like kneeing guys in the side, breaking his ribs or fucking doing internal organ damage for no reason.
Corner actually called it off. Look at this before and after of Ilya Topuria's face. This image is crazy.
It's crazy. Why are you laughing at that? Look at this fucking thing. Like, it kind of doesn't. It should make you fucking sick and like feel bad. Right? They're paying. Look at this fucking ear beforehand. Look at this cauliflower ear. These motherfuckers, their ears get fucked up. You know you need your ears. Your ears are supposed to look like that. Like, that's not a functional ear. Look at this motherfucker, right? You think this is a good fucking thing?
Like, and apparently he went straight to the hospital. But like, I just love that. And by the way,
You just love that. You just love that this happened to this guy's face. You bloodthirsty little fucking pussy. I mean, do you like to do that to people? You've got guys in your basement where because you're not going to fight somebody. You're not going to take any fucking body shots yourself. But you chain some guy up and you beat him with something. So you sick, sadistic fuck. You like that? That's what make America great.
She was very respectful of this guy. He's got a lot of respect for him. Thinks he's like an absolute animal. But listen, that is an image of American might and
American might. Like beating some Hispanic guy up in the fucking White House lawn. That's what the image you want to have. That's what make America great. You fuck. Like, that's what you want to go with. So this one's about how this guy comes out. Not this guy. Here, this guy.
Our leaders don't remember those echoes of history.
Well,
No.
that's one.
This guy's so wrong. Here, put up.
Now look at these giddy motherfuckers, almost as happy as Rachel Maddow and Barney Joe are about Trump's failure.
The demos, they get their voice, and sometimes what they say is going to be very wild. It's going to be strange, but frankly, it makes perfect sense for that level of democracy to be on display at the White House. It's like when Andrew Jackson let them all smear a giant block of cheese on the wall 200 years ago.
She said to look it up, Blake. So we're not going to make you look it up. We got it right here. Play cut 21.
But look what happened.
Michelle Obama is a man. Am I right, America?
Okay, so if you guys don't know this, I talk about it occasionally. My channel was mostly devoted to my former family, my ex and my kids, and I working to create a homestead and being suburban, urban people who, didn't grow up with it. And then, of course, I interwove some of my spiritual stuff in there, but not so much. And then some truther stuff, but mostly it was just that. And then I started to cover different kind of videos. And when I was in India, I watched a video where this couple, one of them, the wife was making the video, the husband, they were kind of rednecky, Republican, white trashy type of people. But the husband was supposed to be working with the police as a forensic analysis, which I don't believe was true. And they came up with this video that Michelle Obama was a dude. And I watched it as a goof. And I just wanted to look it up. I looked it up and I saw that some of the things they said were possible. Like there was a study that, for example, they gave testosterone to animals like rats and mice, and their ring finger, their ring digit, would grow larger. And they said that, one of the indicators of men and women is that the ring finger is, the middle finger is longer than the ring finger. But if your ring finger is longer than your middle finger, it often is an indication of you being a woman, like whatever thing. Well, I can't remember the specifics, but there was some scientific evidence to support that, right? That, these women who are actually men, you'll see it in the size of their fingers. I forget it's years ago. And so I looked into all of it, and some of it, panned out, like it was possible. So I made a video called 95% Chance Michelle Obama is a Man, and Serena Williams and Jennifer Aniston. Like that was where all that shit came from. And they blocked the other video, and the other video wasn't as good as mine because, you know, it was made by dumb fucks. And my video went up to like 2 point some million. Now, I would not remake the video. I'm not proud of the video. And I'm certainly not happy with what happened afterwards with these dumb fucks setting in on it. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that they pick at least masculine-looking women for positions of power in Hollywood. And, you know, there's a lot of evidence. And I went through a whole thing with it. And the video, you know, was my number one video, and it made my channel pop. And so when I see how it's been, you know, degraded down to dumb fucks, and these clowns are talking about conspiracy theorists and wild conspiracy theories about them and Erika Kirk, but this dumb fuck just got up there and said this thing, and it doesn't help. Like, you know, they're talking about people being blackpilled, and they're always shitting on so-called conspiracy theorists, even though Charlie Kirk was filled with conspiracies when Joe Biden was president, and the whole thing with Epstein and the rest of shit where they're willing to cover it up. And these fucking gay Republican dudes and these dumb fuck redneck fucks who have destroyed the truth community and taken things. You know, my video, I wouldn't republish the video. Like, it's not I mean, if I was going to redo the video, no one would watch it because I'd be much more balanced and fair. You know, I would be much more, you know, truthful. Like, I was just saying things other people were saying back then, not just with that video, but other videos. And then I found out there was so much bullshit out there in the truth community. Of course, Alex Jones is a disinformation agent, and there's all these people that were just posting things that aren't true, and it wrecked the truth community because you have to be honest and you have to be, you know, you have to have some, you know, fairness and responsibility. Yeah, I changed the way I make videos. Like, I was more, you know, I didn't go for sensationalism. I mean, I didn't know my video was going to take off. Like, my videos would get 1,000 views, so I just made it as a goof. And I looked at it, and also my video had 100,000 views in one day. And I was like, holy shit, fuck happened, right? And then after that, it just, you know, the channel took off and things. And I made more sensationalistic videos. I made Hollywood celebrity videos and things. And YouTube used to promote them. And my videos used to get millions. I had a number of videos that had millions of views and hundreds of thousands of views. But now, you know, I'm much more... I appeal to a higher audience. I don't want dumb fuck views. I don't appeal to dumb fucks. Not that I knew I was doing that back then, but now I know I was doing, and I wouldn't do that again. But then my channel never would have taken off, right? But you're supposed to evolve and change and grow as a person. Not these two. Look how these clowns these guys are, how happy they are with that.
Oh, come on.
He says it. He says it in a
what
really
are you gonna
funny
do?
way, too.
So this is somehow Trump's fault that some fighter, after, you know, a big huge victory, I think he beat what's this guy's name? The big black dude who was like he's been on Rogan, Derek Lewis. Yeah, he beat Derek Lewis up. He had a big win.
Derek Lewis was like, I mean, you could tell the guy was just taking a paycheck. Like, he didn't train. He was like, you know, I think the guy's 40.
Said something crazy, whatever, and then they go on The View and like, well, this is rooted in classic racism and sexism that black women are considered more masculine. No, that's not what it is.
That's not what it is. You have to take my word for it. Take my word for it. All right, so look at these fucking guys. Okay, it's late at night here. I'm probably going to add something, maybe in terms of a voiceover tomorrow, maybe in terms of more stories. I got a few things with Trump, possibly. This video isn't going up till Thursday, so it's already just Tuesday night here. I've completed most of what you've seen so far. Tonight, I don't know what I'm going to add by the time you see it in 2 days from now, but I want to talk a little bit more about Erika J. Kirk and the two Twinks. You know, they were all comparing Trump's his UFC thing to the time Biden brought in transgender hookers to the White House front lawn. You know, some of the things that they did. And they were always talking about how the liberals disrespect the White House and the government. You know, and this subjective bullshit where they whine about the behavior when the Democrats do it. And they always try to compare themselves favorably. You know, like when Erika Kirk said, look at the difference between what the TPUSGAY people did after Charlie Kirk was shot as opposed to That guy who was shot in Minnesota, what's his name? Floyd, George Floyd. And they were saying, like, look at all the riots that came out of that, as opposed to the way they behaved after Charlie Kirk. So, these were two entirely different type of situations. Charlie Kirk wasn't killed by the police or the government. I mean, that's in terms of what the dumb fucks over there believe. But he wasn't some guy who, like, the African American community has been targeted by the police forever. And I know that, I've talked to cops who talked about profiling black people, like it's there in the, this was years and years ago. But, this is something that was done. And you can say it's just like they profile poor redneck white people too, based on socioeconomic needs. I mean, the police and the law enforcement, the laws are more often there to protect the haves from the have-nots. And that's, of course how it is, right? It's in a rigged system. And so, black people have a different experience with the police than white people. There's, police violence. And the George Floyd thing came after that. It contrived. There's a lot of things fucked up about that whole situation. I'm not agreeing with anything that was done or not. I'm not a fan of Black Lives Matter, any of these things, any liberal bullshit things. We all know how bad the liberals sucked. But, when they do the same thing as the Republicans, they whine about things that when it's done to them, it's horrible. When they do it to the other side, it's justified. And, anybody who's still embedded in the left-right paradigm is worthless. Like, at this point, you got to fucking see it. I mean, you should easily be able to see it. That's more my focus now. It isn't about the powers that be. It's about how fucked up and easily manipulated people are. I saw this thing today. Well, for one thing is, let me get this little thing in. So my wife and I went out there for a walk, and it just had rained. It was kind of a weird night. There were some rain clouds moving in, possible thunderstorms. And our guinea fowl have not been going into the hen house. They were hanging out with these Brahmas. They're kind of chicken. The Brahmas are kind of prehistoric, too. They're kind of stupid, or they're stupider than the average chicken, but smarter than the guineas. And the guineas didn't go in two nights in a row. They didn't go in. And then they went in last night. And so I look out, and the guineas are chasing each other. And they're fast as fuck, the guinea fowl. But they're really stupid. And they're good flyers. And I guess that's how they survive, because they do a lot. They have a lot of kids. They have like sometimes 20 chicks. And, maybe one or two survive or whatever it is. And you have to keep on going. And I guess they're fast enough and fly well enough, but they're really stupid birds. And, but they beat up on the chickens. They kind of bully the chickens, but they're, whatever. And the first time I saw guinea fowl, we went to some farm years ago, and they were doing this behavior, and I hadn't seen ours do it. And one of the guineas was chasing the other one, and they were going around the barn. I have a little bit of video, but it's not worth showing because it doesn't really give you the kind of thing they were doing. They did for like 5 minutes. And so, it was a little bit hot out. It's cooler than most nights. But it was, and they're just doing this shit, right? And my wife and I tried to get them in the hen house, and it's getting late. The door closes automatically at, sunset. It opens at sunrise. And we went for a walk. We came back, and they were miraculously in there. But we came out with flashlights there at night, and we were moving them towards the door. We were just sort of, the birds can't do anything when it's dark out because they're very reliant on sight. That's why owls are, hunt at night because of their, at night vision and shit like that. But most birds, especially chickens, they're sitting ducks. That's why they want to get up in a tree and be as quiet as possible. And the guinea weren't going in. We were flashing a light right on the area. They've gone in and out of the chicken house so many times. They were just walking around it, and it was really frustrating. And so, there's this crazy behavior where they chase each other. And it's kind of hilarious, to see it, because it's just they're retarded. But, before that happened today, so some years back, I found out that this guy, Dodgy, was, I started finding out more and more about all the fucked up things he was doing. I talked about this, infrequently here, occasionally. Maybe you guys have heard some of the things. And I made some videos calling him and the YouTube channel that was so atrocious and things out, because I basically had to. Like, I told people about heartfulness and people were doing the meditation, and I didn't feel comfortable with what was going on. I was thinking that this was a legitimate organization. As soon as I found out it isn't, and when you tell somebody about something and then you find out that it's, is questionable, and it took me a while to accept it, and it wasn't as easy as it was for me to see through other things. But I just found out more and more shit about Dodgy and the whole thing, and it was just a mess, and it went against all the Sajmark principles. And so then I posted these videos, and then a bunch of people from India and other people in other places started to write to me, oftentimes anonymously. And there's a kid, he was Indian, but living in Ireland, I believe, or something. I'm not sure the specifics. And his parents were both like preceptors or longtime practitioners. And he told me about this Brighter Mind scam that Dodgy, it turned out there's this kid he's kind of a little Trump himself. He was kind of a grifter kid. My son hung out with this kid. The kid was maybe a year or two younger. And my ex taught this, was helping this kid's mom homeschool him, right? Because homeschooling in India was not well developed. And this kid was a real bullshit artist. Kind of funny kid. I saw him tell stories, and he was, he had taken this midbrain activation thing where they pretend they look through blindfolds, and then they pretend they can solve a Rubik's Cube by smelling it. I've talked about this before. It had been a scam in India that had been exposed, and this kid showed Dodgy, and either Dodgy bought into it, and maybe still bought into it. I don't even know. It's hard to say at first, and then he franchised it. He made it, and he changed the name and tried to manipulate it, and I don't know, just really dumb fuck shit. And they're not making any money. Like, nobody's doing it. I mean, it's a small-time scam. It's not bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars, but many of these people were franchising this thing, and, it's fake, right? And, the Indian kids, there's so much pressure on them academically, and to be like, these academic heroes and be smart and pass tests and, go to America and make money and, all these things. That, this appealed to them to give their kids an edge, right? In the country, and I don't know how much money was made, but it was exposed as a scam. And I started talking about that. And then there was an Indian guy who was an American doctor. He grew up, in America, very westernized. He swore, and he was more of an American than he was Indian, but he, still had some cultural roots, and he had done the Sajmark system. And he calls me up, or he contacts me on Facebook, and I think I was friends with his wife maybe, and but didn't really know. Like a lot of these people I never met, but they were practitioners of Sajmark. And he tells me that Dodgy wanted to validate the Brighter Mind system. So he brought in all these people who had credentials, scientists, a lot of people, scientists, doctors, and they tested the kids, and the kids all passed, and they were all giving with Dodgy what he wanted. But this guy, didn't feel comfortable doing that. He was an American, doctor. He's like a legitimate doctor, has a practice, successful. I know he has like a big fancy house, like he's making money and shit. And younger guy, probably in his 30s. And so he puts eye patches on these kids, right? Because they're looking through the blindfolds, and none of the kids, including this original kid, who's now in his like 20s, like he's it's been years since we were in India. It was 2015 when they started doing this stuff, and they all fail, right? And the original guy there's a guy he belongs to what's called the Rationalist Society in India, and he goes after these hoaxes, and that guy's on Facebook, and he's got a whole thing, and he did tests where he put eye patches. And he proved that the thing wasn't right. It was a whole thing. And he offered money to anybody who's running this scam, that he would give them so much money if kids could pass his test. And nobody wants to do it because it's bullshit, right? And the parents kind of know. And so this young doctor, this Abhyasi, practitioner of Sajmark, heartfulness, puts eye patches on the kids, and they all fail. And everybody loses their shit, right? Like around him. And Well, what he found out too was like they don't really tell the kids to lie, but what they do is they'll put a bag of balls where there'll be like 4 or 5 different colored balls in the bag, and they'll have the kids stick their hands in the bag, and and guess what it is, right? And eventually, some kid's going to guess right because it's 1 out of 5 chance, and the adults praise the kid, talk about how great the kid is and how super they are and how they're having a breakthrough. And so the kids start looking through the blindfolds because they want to hear the praise too. And they end up cheating, but no one ever talks about it. Like they're not told to cheat, these things. And if the kid gets caught, then the adults have, I mean, it's a real scumbag shit, right? And so this guy, these doctors and scientists and Dodgy all kind of lose their shit on this guy, right? And they're telling him, like, they're trying to pressure him to reverse his findings and agree with this fucking thing that's obviously fake, right? Like, he's tested the kids, and he's tested a bunch of them, every kid that made themselves available, and they all fail. And there's one woman, she's like a pediatrician, she's like a doctor. And her kid is one of the Brighter Minds kids. And she goes off and gets hysterical and starts yelling at the guy. Because she's going, are you telling me my kid isn't special? Like, this fucking bullshit, right? Crazy shit. And Dodgy starts paying extra attention to the guy and praising him and bringing him around. And, like spending time with him. And, the other thing was they have these whispers of the brighter world messages. I've read the prophecies for them. And there's these prophecies. And, the woman who gives the gives the brighter world messages, that's why Dodgy named it Brighter Minds, to make it associated with whispers. And she's in France, and she's a shut-in, a woman with severe back pain, and, she's disabled. And she had doubts. Like, she would often, like, think she was crazy and that she was, that this wasn't real. I mean, she, and she certainly didn't profit. She had money that she donated. When she died, she donated all the money to the organization. And so there wasn't any profit. She didn't do readings for people or something. Just did these messages and handed over the work, and they published the books, and she didn't make any money off of it, right? Just, she was a rich woman. Her parents left her like a couple $1 million in assets, and she turned it all over the mission. She didn't have any kids because of her, physical disabilities. But, with anything like the channeling, it's just like with QB, QAnon or anything. People claim they talk to God, a burning bush. It's very suspect, right? And so it has to be handled in a way where people don't come in and start pushing their ideas or manipulating and changing things. Like I talk about what happened with the Bible and so many religious texts. When you have a divine revelation that comes through someone, you have to keep it pure, and you can't, it's always got to be above board. And this piece of shit Dodgy, and I didn't know about it. Back in 2015, he goes to France to visit this woman, this medium, and he brings these Brighter Minds kids along, and he tries to force Dodgy to give an agreement. I mean, Babaji, the second master of the system, who did the most of the, his soul would give this woman messages, and he gave this message that was supportive of Dodgy, but not validating the Brighter Minds. It said something like, anything that's good should be utilized. But he wasn't saying this thing was good, right? Because I don't know if Dodgy was being manipulative or he was just, embarrassed. I don't even know what the fuck, right? But by doing this, he compromised all the whispers messages because he was, pressuring this woman and, this dead former master soul to validate this scam he was doing, right? And some of the senior members, like some people like, I knew that were, I thought, good people, tried to pressure this young doctor by saying, look, you're wrong. This is a whispers message validating it. And I'm like, holy shit, right? This is bad. And so the guy's like, we had these long conversations, and he was like, I feel like I'm in a cult, right? And he's like, Dodgy has to know this is fake. He's like, he just, like he went somewhere with Dodgy, like shopping with some of the, families, and, he's in like Detroit or someplace where there's a lot of these practitioners, and Dodgy's, in a toy store, and he's telling these kids to get their parents to buy them the Rubik's Cube so they can use them in their fucking brighter minds bullshit. And years ago, my oldest son, could solve a Rubik's Cube in like 15 seconds. He had a speed cube, and he got into and he did a demonstration for Dodgy, and Dodgy was really impressed. So I think that played into this whole fucking thing. And so the reason I'm telling you all this is, over time, this doctor was won back over by Dodgy and the people. And, Dodgy has shit on his guru, his spiritual master, Charji, which in the Indian culture, which I talked about extensively, I read the message. And he's been trying to cancel Charji's birthday. And I was talking to this doctor, and this doctor refused to believe it. He was arguing with me about it. I'm like, all right, bro. And so I just happened to see this doctor on Facebook, and he's always praising Dodgy now, and he's like, So he went from being in a cult and being abused and being pressured to lie and put his career in jeopardy and his family's well-being and his reputation in jeopardy as a professional doctor to validate a scam, which is a good person would never do that. A friend, certainly an elder. I mean, this is how much of a piece of shit Dodgy is. He's like the fucking worst. When, this used to be a purely spiritual organization that helped people, connect to the divinity within them, and it benefited so many people. And he's fucking wrecked it like the prick. And this guy, this doctor who, saw it, totally saw it. And he's a smart guy, very successful. He's got, he's a sort of famous doctor. He's a person of like stature. And he fucking just completely failed. Like, he saw it. He experienced it. The scam. Anybody should be able to see that Dodgy hates his spiritual master, Charji, which, once you cut yourself off from that, you lose on any sense of divinity. Like, you can't. It's like cutting yourself off from God, right? So there's like a lineage there. And there's a line of, respect. And you can't fucking break that, break free from that kind of, the person that trained you. Like, you can't say fuck you after you get elevated spiritually by someone. Why would you want to? Like, someone's helped you that much. I feel nothing but gratitude for what Master Charji did for me, right? Like, he transformed me internally and changed my, everything for the better. And so, I've seen this over and over again with these fucking losers. It's right in their fucking face, and they refuse to believe it. They get angry at you if you try to point it out. Like, just like with sheeple, but even worse. This is, like, the government and politicians fucking lie. Going back to the Erika Kirk and the Charlie, the TPUSGay guys, they all lie. They're manipulative, and they have this idea the ends justify the means. Plus, they feel like they're, like, in the case of the Republicans, just like the Democrats, it's justifiable because you got to prevent Trump from ruining the world or Biden from ruining the world, right? So even if you have to engage in dirty tricks and dirty warfare, you're up against diabolical enemies and, these straw men fucking enemies that they make up, whether it's the Russians or it's the Chinese now or it's, the Muslims or, whatever it might be. And, they make up these, artificial, whatever they are, fucking enemies and whatever. And so, in all that, like, you have fucking, good and bad and, or at least we're not as bad as them. But when you're talking about being spiritual, there's none of that. Because there's no devil, like, there's no devil bullshit. You're a potential devil. You're a potential demon. You have the potential to go south, like everyone does. You're battling internally. And then, a real spiritual organization like the Seismic System, there's none of that shit, right? And so all you have as a spiritual master is you got to be a cut above. You have to be service-oriented, and you have to have integrity and ethics, because once people lose faith in you, they lose faith in the system. You have to be, and Dodgy's fucked that all up, and these people just keep on going back for more. Thank you, sir. May I have another? And so, every time I see this doctor praising Dodgy or or like what he was doing here. You know, like today he had all these pictures up. And I'm like, what an absolute piece of shit this motherfucker is, because he experienced it. I mean, even more than I did. He saw the, you know, they were like trying to intimidate him and pressure him and fucking to fucking lie and for what? Some bullshit fucking scam that everyone knows is a scam. It's embarrassing, right? And so, you know, Dodgy tried to rope Deepak Chopra into this and other people. Deepak Chopra went along with it too because he's a scumbag. You know, so like, I mean, Dodgy was doing things where he was bringing like important governmental officials in, and he'd do this demonstration with the kids with the blindfold, and then he'd post pictures of it, like as a way to, so that they wouldn't go after him. You know, if they went after him, they would be embarrassed too, right? Because they were, you know, they were pictured with these blindfolded kids, and he tried to get them to praise the kids and whatever it is, like, you know, not call, you know, when it's so obviously bullshit, just like the fake assassination attempt. And so I'm, you know, where I'm at right now is I'm dumbfounded and just, you know, shaking my fucking head, just like completely bummed at how bad people suck and their refusal to see the truth, right? You know, like the truth that's painful for them to see, and things about their people and their demographics and their things they believe in and whatever it is, and not seeing. You can see truth when it's Joe Biden, but not when it's Donald Trump, right? Because, you know, he's one of your guys, and, you know, when he's so obviously a piece of shit, and vice versa for the left. I mean, it's across the board. I think there's nothing to save here. Like, if, you know, if God were to ask me, I'd be like, oh yeah, you should wipe the whole fucking thing out. I mean, not that there isn't good people and some good things in humanity, and certainly there's potential, but right now it's like 1%. Like, it's not even, you know, for the most part, it's just a shit show. And I think everybody else sees it. They just don't want to admit it. Anyways, I think I'll probably, well, we'll see. I'll wrap this video up tomorrow. Okay, so fucking Israel, Trump gave a variety of press conferences. He's scrambling. He threatened Iran again. He's kind of criticizing Bibi by simultaneously kissing his ass. I mean, it's a whole fucking thing. And I'm going to cover that tomorrow in my next video. I mean, this video is already 3 hours long. And a bunch of shit's happened already. And then there was another press conference that I was watching a little bit when I was eating lunch. There's two things that he said. I mean, I just got to find all this stuff. So that'll go in my next video. It'll be just already epic based on just the content of it. And so there was one comment I wanted to get to. You know, I think it's here. And the person, Iran deal as Donnie Shekels, Iran deal as Donnie Shekels white trashes the White House, MAGA dumb fucks. So this person is, you know, a dumb fuck. So you gotta like, you know, fill in the gaps and the holes in somebody's inability to articulate or think through their thoughts, right? And the person writes, and why does the left keep failing? They're openly hateful to everyone who has fun without them or doesn't kneel before their beliefs. Boo-hoo. All you are is the fun police. Who sounds like a redneck? I think that's me, right? I'm the fun police. It sounds like a redneck. So saying that I sound like a redneck is also, first of all, I'm not liberal, and anybody who watched my videos would know that. And, you know, they're trying to categorize me as that because that's all they can do. You know, they're locked into a binary way of thinking, and everyone who's critical of Trump is on the left. You know, they just have these constructs that they're given. Like, you know, you're not able to think. You're an NPC that sucks. It's malfunctioning. You're a malfunctioning NPC. These malfunctioning, I got to remember to say that, malfunctioning NPC dumb fucks, right? Because if you listen to what I was saying, you could clearly see my point of view. It doesn't come from me saying people having fun. I don't give a shit. I don't even give a shit if you fucking do anything on the White House lawn. I don't care if you fucking tear the White House down. I don't care if you shit all over it. I don't care if you fucking paint a rainbow flag in. I don't care if you prance around. You fucking, you know, you're a big fat bearded white dude who prances around in a tutu. I guess that's what they were doing. Red, white, and blue tutu, and come out and say Michelle Obama's Dude, I don't give a fuck about any of that stuff. I don't care about the America isn't sacred to me, and none of these things are. The Capitol, whatever, it's all pretend, and it's none of the stuff is real. So I don't care, and pretty much anybody who could listen to me would understand that. I do not care about your bullshit things that you do or whatever's being done here. So, having said that, this is fucked up what he's doing, right? It's a birthday party for himself, degrading what Republicans think is reverent, and it's just so stupid. It's like dumb. It's for dumb fucking people. People who want to see motorcycle jumping. If somebody was going to go out in my front yard, like down the road, and was going to jump some cars, I might stop by to watch the guy eat shit, But I'm not going to drive out of my way to go to a fucking park. My dad won something for he worked for a high school as a guidance counselor, and somehow they took a busload of people who were employed in this, in the Hartford school system, and it was a free trip. So my dad took it and he dragged me along with him. I remember the bus was filled like with people of color, like black people and Puerto Rican people, which I don't know why they were going to this thing. NASCAR's typically white guy bullshit, but it was drag racing, right? And I had drag race like Hot Wheels cars, to play with my Hot Wheels cars. Like kids had these things. I had the Hot Wheels track, I'd set up, and it was like a fucking, you could stick it to the wall or something, and then it was like plastic track, and you'd let your Hot Wheels cars go down it. And so, I might have been somewhat interested. Maybe my dad took me for that reason, or maybe because he was just cheap and it was free. But we took a bus, and it was like fucking the middle of the summer, and the heat was beating off the racetrack, and just like the sun was, and just fucking, like the heat was, you could see that, look at cement. When I lived in the West, we lived in, in Utah and fucking Nevada, you can see the fucking, and just in general, other places, when the sun's beating down on some, some tar, some, hot, whatever it is, and you can see the waves of heat, like you can fucking fry an egg on the sidewalk. And it was hot as shit, and it was fucking loud, and like I didn't know what the fuck's going on. I'm like a little kid, like 8, whatever. And my dad didn't like it because he wouldn't like that kind of shit. But we're stuck there because we got to wait for the fucking bus to leave. And so I am fucking dehydrated, and I, wasn't a complaining kid, but I was really thirsty. Like I remember how thirsty I was, and they didn't have any fucking water at this redneck bullshit thing that was in Connecticut, like just like the WWE, and my dad was buying me snow cones, which was filled with that fucking syrup. He should have told him to not give the syrup. They used to put this fucking toxic syrup on it back when chemicals were the thing in the 70s, and the more I eat, the more thirsty I'm getting, because I'm not getting like what I need, which is the water. Even the ice would have been better, and it's not like I'm dying of thirst, and I had like 3 fucking snow cones, and I'm like, it's just making it worse. They don't have any water or soda or anything. Like they didn't fucking, and so it just ended up sucking. I'm like, this is for fucking retarded people. Like even as a young kid, I saw that with WWE. It's not for smart people or evolved people. You can like it a little bit, but it can't be your passion. You can't like fucking, whatever. And it's a silly little thing. Maybe you liked it when you're a kid and you reminisce the way I feel about sports. But, it's no big deal. It's not a real thing. It's just a distraction and a lowbrow shit, right? And so clearly that's what WWE is and all the rest of this stuff. It's just lowbrow shit. And Trump, loves the elitists. He likes elite people. He plays fucking golf. I don't know what his fascination was with boxing and this bullshit in WWE, but he likes to be a part of that weird world, but he's really an elitist. He doesn't like the people that are there. He looks down at them. These are the kind of people that he would screw over, vendors, construction workers and people, blue-collar people that he would screw over and renegotiate a deal when they've made a deal. He doesn't value their skill. He looks down at them. He thinks they're retarded. And so, this whole thing's a mockery. Anyways, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's paramount, definitely important from the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.